Chapter 5073. Crack. The black stone was hit by the spear, and several cracks appeared on it. As if a seal had been opened, a black light immediately escaped from the black stone, filling Zi-Chen's sea of consciousness. The spear was still there, releasing a terrifying aura, trying to destroy the escaping soul power. At this moment, the black stone shook. Buzz! There seemed to be a strange rule appearing from the sea of consciousness, and in an instant, it destroyed the soul power spear. In the black stone, the light continued to escape, filling Zi-Chen's sea of consciousness. These lights were all soul power. They were real soul power. They seemed to be in a seal before, and as the spear shattered the black stone, they finally broke out of the seal. Spicer's attack landed. In his imagination, Zi-Chen would scream, and then his body would disappear. However, such a scene did not happen. Zi-Chen was still lying there, no longer rolling or screaming, as if he had fallen asleep, becoming very quiet. What's going on? Butterball and Kant were bewildered. Is he dead? Of course he was not dead, because below the six-force estate he would disappear if he died. This was the most basic common sense. However, right now, Zi-Chen's situation was too strange, and they could not figure it out. This guy, could he be faking his death? Phoebe was also a little uncertain. Do you think we are idiots? Sanglali was so angry that he launched an attack. If he really dies, you will disappear. The energy attack landed on Zi-Chen's body, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea, and did not cause the slightest ripple. I don't believe it. A cold light flashed across Spicer's face. In front of everyone, he could not kill a five-force estate, and he felt very embarrassed. In his hand, energy vibrated violently, and countless soul power gathered in front of him, forming a spear. The spear was dripping blood, and every drop of blood was made of soul power. It looked exceptionally terrifying. Phoebe and the others could not bear the pressure of this soul power and immediately retreated. They knew that their former comrade was truly enraged today. Buzz! Gripping the spear tightly in his hand, his soul power surged wildly as he thrust it forward. It directly pierced into Zi-Chen's mind. Facing this attack, Zi-Chen did not resist at all. At this moment, a violent aura suddenly erupted from Zi-Chen's mind, forming a black storm. The long spear that Spike had just stabbed into Zi-Chen's sea of consciousness seemed to have met its natural enemy as it quickly escaped. Shwa! At this moment, the storm spread and engulfed the spear. In the next moment, the spear exploded. At the same time, the storm was wreaking havoc as it frantically expanded. The soul power contained within it caused everyone to be alarmed. What powerful soul power! Khan exclaimed. How could this be? He's a spirit caster. How can he have soul power? Phoebe was also in disbelief. Sanglali and the others looked at the raging storm of soul power in front of them with shock in their eyes. In Shattering Law City, spirit casters and spellbreakers were at odds with each other. However, there was a clear difference between the two. Spiritual techniques had energy, while breaking techniques had soul power. It was impossible for the two to be combined, unless a word that rarely appeared in their minds appeared. That was a very special existence. There were very few of them, and they were the top existences in this world. Shadow Destroyer. Could it be that Zi-Chen was a Shadow Destroyer? As soon as this thought appeared, it was dispelled. The birth of every Shadow Destroyer in this world was extremely difficult. Moreover, there would be abnormalities a long time ago. It was impossible for it to be like this. But what was the deal with that soul power storm? Retreat quickly, that guy is strange. Spike shouted loudly. Only he who had reached the six-force estate understood how terrifying the storm ahead was. It contained powerful and terrifying rules. Even though he had already come into contact with rules, he still felt a strong sense of danger from it at this moment. Right now, once the storm touched him, it would definitely be a crisis of death. And such a soul power storm did not seem like one that a five-forces state should have. The spell breakers began to retreat. Of course, Lu Yao and the others also retreated. The soul power storm ahead continued. Zichen lay in the storm as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. He did not know what had happened. As the soul power dissipated, the cracks on the black stone began to repair until they were completely healed. The storm that formed around him also slowly dissipated. A portion of the soul power disappeared in the surroundings, and a portion returned to the sea of consciousness. The people in the distance all watched from there, not daring to act rashly. Zichen sat up. He was very clear about what had happened just now. It was just that his body did not listen to him. In his mind, a new space appeared, and in this space, a piece of black stone quietly floated. And around the black stone, there was black soul power. It was extremely dense and sticky like fragments. This soul power was real, but when Zichen tried to mobilize it, he did not succeed. It was like a huge rock placed in front of him, but he did not have the strength to move it. After trying a few times without success, Zichen felt very regretful. He had a strong feeling that as long as he had enough power to mobilize the soul power, he would become a spell breaker. Phoebe and the others had not retreated yet. They were still standing in the distance and watching. But now they looked at Zichen as if they were looking at a monster. The soul power storm just now was too terrifying. Zichen also glanced at them. Without saying anything, he walked forward. Everyone immediately looked at Spicer. Spicer shook his head. The current Zichen, although looking normal, still gave him a dangerous feeling. He might have a treasure on him that can block my soul power attack. Spicer said, and you guys can't beat him. It might be because of this. Spicer's guess was already 80% close to the truth. It was just that he did not know that the treasure had already fused with Zichen's soul. Or in other words, that was Zichen's soul. It was just that, after coming to this world, it had been sealed. And this time, because of Spicer's attack, a layer of the seal was released, allowing Zichen to face his own soul here. Under such circumstances, it would be very difficult for Spicer to kill him again. Zichen retracted the light of Imperial Spirit, picked up the long rod and carried it back. Phoebe and the others watched as Zichen left. No one dared to stop him. They didn't have the strength to stop Zichen, and Spicer didn't know how many soul power storms could be unleashed by that precious treasure, because that storm was too terrifying. Once he was swept up, even if he was at the 6 realms, he would not be able to survive. Zichen entered the city and walked towards his residence. Along the way, when everyone saw Zichen, they all looked as if they had seen a ghost. Wherever Zichen passed, there would be countless exclamations. Chapter 5074. Zichen's return caused a sensation. Everyone came out to take a look. When they saw Zichen's battle armor and long staff, everyone was dumbfounded. They exclaimed, "Isn't that Lu Yao's equipment? Why is it with Zichen?" Zichen arrived at his residence without a word. Marcus had already heard the news and was waiting here. Seeing Zichen's equipment, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. "Where's Lu Yao?" he immediately asked. "Behind. He should be back soon," Zichen said. "Oh." Marcus seemed surprised because, under normal circumstances, it should be a life and death battle. He gave this to me. How can I have the nerve to kill him again? When Zichen spoke, many people in the distance were listening and were extremely surprised. Did he defeat Lu Yao? What about Sang, Larry, and the others? Marcus asked again. This was also the question in everyone's heart. At this moment, they all looked at Zichen. Zichen said they'll be back soon. That's it. Marcus was looking forward to it. He didn't expect to get such an answer. What else? Zichen asked. They didn't make things difficult for you? No. Zichen said they're good people. After taking me out for a chat, each of them gave me a piece of martial crystal. As soon as this was said, it immediately caused an uproar. They remembered what Zi-Chin said yesterday. If they wanted to live, they had to prepare a piece of martial crystal. Now it seemed that all 6 of them were defeated and had to take out martial crystals in exchange for their lives. For a moment, everyone was extremely shocked. They were all guessing how Zi-Chin did it. Soon, the news came that they had indeed returned. No one died. Zi-Chen returned to his room and continued to study his soul power. Phoebe and the others returned. They were no longer as energetic as when they left. They were all dejected. Even Spike, who was at the Six Forces realm, could not kill Zi-Chin. It would be too difficult for them to kill Zi-Chin. In the room, Zi-Chin tried again and again to circulate his soul force, but to no avail. The soul power in his sea of consciousness was abundant and powerful, but he was unable to mobilize it. Those who had not been mobilized were naturally spirit spellcasters. Once there was soul power, it would be the combination of a spirit caster and a spellbreaker. Shadow Destroyer. Marcus had said that such existences were extremely rare because they were extremely powerful. Phoebe and the others returned. The news of their failure to plot against Zi-Chin once again spread. This infuriated them greatly. Damn it! Not only do they have those strange weapons, but they also have treasures that can protect their souls. Why is it that he has all the good stuff? Phoebe was very angry. Even now, they still believed that the reason Zi-Chin was still alive was that the supreme treasure on him was protecting him. What should we do now? Butterball and Kant said, Are we going to let him get away with it and then mock us? Sangleri said, What else can we do? If we can't kill him now, are we going to find a 7 Forces realm cultivator? Of course, this was unrealistic. The reason why they could find Spike was that they were very familiar with each other and had been in the same realm for a long time. That was why they were willing to help. The few of them gathered together and did not think of a good idea. Instead, they accumulated a bellyful of anger. When the news spread, Zi-Chun shocked everyone again. Marcus went to tell Ape Bert the latest news. After Ape Bert heard it, a look of shock immediately appeared on his face. Even a 6 Forces realm cultivator can't kill him? His expression changed. What kind of supreme treasure is that? Spike was a 6 Forces realm spellbreaker. If he faced Ape Bert head-on, Ape Bert had no confidence in winning. Now he finally understood why Zi-Chen was not afraid of those spellbreakers. It turned out that he had the protection of a soul power supreme treasure. This kind of thing was definitely rare in Pofa City. Arbort tapped the table lightly with his finger and fell into deep thought. You know everything? He looked at Marcus. Marcus did not know what Ape Bert was thinking. He said directly, the people who came back didn't hide it. The news should spread soon. Ape Bert nodded and said, What kind of supreme treasure do you think it is? Marcus shook his head. I'm not sure. I've never seen it before. Maybe it's not a supreme treasure, but Zi-Chen's original soul power. A spirit spellbreaker can't have such powerful soul power. Ape Bert said again, Say if I have this supreme treasure, will I not be afraid of the spellbreakers? Marcus' expression changed. The reason why the spellbreakers are powerful is that they have soul power that we can't resist. That's why they are superior to others. Ape Bert said, And once we have a soul power supreme treasure, will we be able to suppress them? Sir, what do you mean? Marcus looked at Ape Bert. Ape Bert smiled and said, Don't think too much. I'm just asking out of curiosity. After all, we've never seen a soul power supreme treasure before. By the way, go and tell Zi-Chin that he did well this time, but don't be careless. The spell breakers rarely suffer losses. They might come up with some bad tricks. When the time comes, I won't be able to protect him even if I want to. Yes. Marcus nodded and left Ape Bert's residence. After leaving Ape Bert's residence, Marcus finally heaved a sigh of relief. He was really worried that Lord Bert would say what he thought. Originally, he wanted to share this good news with Lord Bert, But now it seemed that was not the case. It seems that Zi Chen might be in trouble again. Marcus shook his head, helplessly. Even Lord Bert's mood was not normal, let alone the others. Once the news spread, everyone would be talking about the Soul Power Supreme Treasure. Maybe Lord Bert was reminding me to persuade Zi Chen to hand over the Supreme Treasure in exchange for Ping'an? Marcus shook his head again. That was obviously impossible. Even if there really was a Supreme Treasure, if Zi Chen was willing to hand it over, it would only be a dead end. Because without the protection of the Supreme Treasure, anyone of Phoebe and the others could kill him. He wanted to go back immediately and remind Zi Chen to be careful. Just as he walked to the door, he saw someone arrive ahead of him. "Zi Chen, get out here." This voice came from Lu Yao. Even without his armor and weapon, he was still arrogant and domineering, because there was a 6th-strength realm cultivator beside him. This was his teammate. "Lord Ogiest is here. Hurry up and come out to greet him." Lu Yao shouted again. Zi Chen walked out of the room, wearing his armor and holding a long staff. "What are you shouting for?" Ogiest stood there, no energy surging around him. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Zi Chen. "You're Zi Chen. Who are you?" Zi Chen looked at him. "Why aren't you greeting Lord Ogiest when you see him?" Lu Yao roared. Ogiest waved his hand and said, "There's no need to greet me. Hand over Lu Yao's weapon and armor with both hands and apologize to Lu Yao. Then this matter will be settled." Chapter 5075. What did you say? Zi Chen looked at Ogiest. "I told you to return the item and then kneel down and apologize. Don't you have ears?" Lu Yao stared at Zi Chen and shouted, "You've got guts!" Zi Chen's eyes flashed coldly. "Did you forget how you begged for mercy? Open your dog eyes wide and look. Lord Ogiest is here." Lu Yao angrily rebuked. "What's with your attitude?" Ogiest coldly said, "I don't want to repeat the same words a second time." Zi Chen looked at him. "Why should I?" Ogiest narrowed his eyes. "What do you think?" "I say you're crazy." Zi Chen's eyes had a hint of ridicule. "Did you eat the wrong medicine? Are you trying to act like a character in front of me? Why don't you take a look at yourself? I'm not even afraid of a 6 Forces realm lawbreaker, so why should I be afraid of you?" Zi Chen's rude words caused an uproar. This was clearly a confrontation, and there was no room for reconciliation. "You want to die?" Ogiest's eyes flashed with killing intent. He originally thought that, as long as he said a few words, the other party would definitely obediently return the item. He never thought that the other party's attitude would be so bad. "If you have the ability, then do it. If you don't, then get lost." Zi Chen looked at Ogiest and disdainfully said, "I hate people like you who don't have the ability and talk a lot of nonsense." Zi Chen looked at Lu Yao again. "Serves those lawbreakers right for looking down on you. Look at how you can't afford to lose. Look at them. Which one of them isn't honest?" After saying that, Zi Chen turned and returned to his room. "Stop!" Ogiest angrily shouted, his eyes fixed on Zi Chen. Zi Chen stopped, looked at the other party, and coldly said, "If you have the ability, then do it now. If you don't, then get lost." Lu Yao shouted, "Zi Chen, don't be so proud. You blocked the lawbreakers because you have a soul power treasure, but in front of a spirit mage, your treasure is useless. As long as there's a light, you'll die. Now, obediently kowtow and admit your mistake. Otherwise, you know the consequences." "I told you to scram, but you didn't. Looks like you're here to get scolded." Zi Chen could see that the two obviously did not dare to make a move, and he also did not dare to make a move here, so he could only fight with the two of them. "Why should I return the things that I obtained with my own strength? A spirit caster of the 6 Forces realm, what are you? Even a 6 Forces level spellbreaker didn't ask for anything from me. Who do you think you are? You don't have the guts to make a move, yet you dare to come to my place and look for trouble?" Is there something wrong with your brains, or do you need a scolding? Zichen did not hold back in front of this Six Realms cultivator, and he began to scold him. The Six Forces realm cultivators were naturally furious, but they did not dare to make a move. From this, it could be seen that spirit casters were in an awkward position in Broken Law City. If it were those fellows, they would have attacked long ago. After a round of scolding, Zichen naturally wouldn't wait for the other party to scold him back. He turned around and entered the room, leaving behind a group of people with their heads buzzing. This should be the first in history to do so, right? Marcus really admired Zichen. He was too bold. However, on second thought, the other party had taken the initiative to come here this time to find trouble. The probability of both parties reconciling was too small. Since this was the case, it was normal for him to scold him to his heart's content. Ogiest was filled with anger, but he had no place to vent it. Even if he was a Six Realms cultivator, it was impossible for him to kill Zichen in this place. Therefore, they turned back with anger. If they wanted to kill Zichen, they had to lure him outside again. For a Six Realms cultivator, this was obviously not a difficult task. However, just as Ogiest was thinking of a way to get Zichen out, he encountered an obstacle. This made him feel very incredulous. He was a Six Realms cultivator, yet he couldn't make the decision for a Five Realms cultivator. Lu Yao waited outside. After a while, Ogiest walked out with a look of unwillingness on his face. How was it? Lu Yao asked. Ogiest shook his head and said he didn't agree. Lu Yao was shocked and said, "How is that possible? It's just a mission to take him out. How could he not agree? That guy has a soul power treasure on him. Now he has been targeted by many forces. Everyone is currently observing. Naturally, they don't dare to act rashly." Hearing Ogiest's words, Lu Yao said unwillingly, "Could it be that this is a good thing for him?" Even though Ogiest was unwilling in his heart, he had no other way to deal with Zichen. "Tomorrow I'll look for Phoebe and the others. Maybe they can help." Lu Yao believed that after this incident, they would be more determined to kill Zichen. They would definitely help. There were many rules of a spiritual caster, but they were useless against a spellbreaker. "All right, as long as we leave this place, I will definitely be able to kill him." Ogiest's eyes were full of killing intent. He was also full of confidence in killing Zichen. The next day, Lu Yao went to look for Phoebe. Phoebe was very unwilling to see him. After Lu Yao explained the purpose of his visit, Phoebe said angrily, "Do you think I'm an idiot?" "What do you mean?" Lu Yao felt a little confused. He asked for help this time to build a good relationship. He didn't have any ill intentions. "Now, everyone knows that Zichen has a treasure on him. You want me to take him out. Isn't it because you want to snatch that soul power treasure?" Phoebe said coldly. "You misunderstood. We don't mean that. We don't know what that treasure is. We just want to kill Zichen." Lu Yao promised solemnly, "As long as we can take Zichen out, we can kill him. Even if there is a treasure, we won't take it." Phoebe's expression softened. "You can go. Now no one can take Zichen out." Lu Yao's expression suddenly changed. "Even you can't." "This is the order of the higher-ups. No one can." Only then did Lu Yao realize the seriousness of the matter. It seemed that there were too many forces paying attention to Zichen's soul power treasure. These forces formed some kind of restraint between each other, and no one was willing to be the first to act. Lu Yao walked back, but he wasn't too disappointed. After all, he had talked to Phoebe, and there was still a possibility of cooperation in the future. Zichen stayed in his room, and for a long time, no one came to look for him. Even Marcus, who lived next door, did not come to look for him. Zichen stayed in his room and refined the energy. After refining the energy, he went to the Hall of Spiritual Spells to exchange. Along the way, many people looked at him strangely, but no one came to find trouble. This made Zichen feel a little strange. Even when the spiritual power in his body was almost refined, no trouble came to him. Zichen didn't refine those martial crystals. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he couldn't bear to. He hoped to gather them together in exchange for a martial crystal source. Who knows, he might be able to advance again. Since no trouble came, he could only rely on himself. Otherwise, if he continued to stay in his room, there would be a day when the energy would be exhausted and he would die. And for such a long time, he had tried countless times to control his soul power, but to no avail. Maybe he had to reach the Six Forces realm. The slaughter spirit had long refined all the killing crystals and urgently needed to replenish. His resources were already stretched to the limit. Zichen left his room and went to find Marcus. He wasn't there, so he went to the place where the lawbreakers were and directly found Butterball and Kant. "Take me out and find some work." Seeing Butterball, Zichen directly explained his purpose. Chapter 5076. I still don't have a draft. My thoughts aren't clear. I'll update tomorrow. Thunder Warrior won't be updated today. It'll be updated tomorrow. It's in your hands. Please wait a moment after the content is updated. Please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5077. Butterball and Kant looked at Zichen as if they were looking at an idiot. "Didn't you hear me?" Zichen looked at Kant, who didn't react. "What did you say?" Kant wanted to confirm. "Take me out and find some work," Zichen repeated. Kant laughed, his eyes full of sarcasm. "Why?" Zichen clenched his fist. "Because of this?" Kant's smile froze and his eyes flashed. You dare to touch me? You dare to disregard the rules of Dharma Breaker City? I was walking by accident and stepped on your face. Does that count as breaking the rules?" Zichen asked. Kant's eyes twitched. Of course, he knew what Zichen meant. Even a blind man wouldn't step on his face if he was walking by himself. That was a warning. He looked around, but there was no one else. What if he really stepped on his face? "Why me?" Kant asked. "Why not them?" "I told you last time that people like you can survive easily," Zichen said. "So, you will follow me from now on because you have a long life." At this moment, people came from afar. Zichen had become famous recently. His words and actions were all closely watched. "What did you say?" Butterball and Kant saw people coming, so they raised their voices. "How dare you talk to a Dharma breaker like that?" Zichen touched his chin. "If you shout again, I will beat you to death." Kant's head shrank. He was really scared of Zichen. "Someone is watching. You don't dare to do it here." Zichen said, "I can hit you and then insist that you were the one who started it." You. Shameless. Kangda was really scared. He had run into a scoundrel. "What do you want?" Zichen stretched out 2 fingers and said, "You have 2 choices. One is to take me out and bring back some resources. The second is that you refuse to take me out and give me some resources so that I can continue to cultivate." "On what basis?" Seeing Zichen raise his fist again, Butterball and Kant were completely terrified. Ignoring the strange looks from the others, he sat down on the ground. "No one dares to let you out now. Everyone is watching you." Zichen had also guessed this. Recently, even Marcus did not look for him. It seemed that he was deliberately avoiding something. "Everyone won't do anything to you. But if you go out on your own, it'll be a different story." Butterball and Kant said cautiously, "That is to say, after you go out, those who were originally restraining each other may all deal with you. If you go out, you won't be able to come back. With your current strength, a 6 powers realm spirit caster can easily kill you." Obviously, Kant also thought that Zichen was not afraid of Spicer because of some soul power treasure. But if he met a 6 powers realm spirit caster, he might not be able to do it. Zichen nodded and said, "What you said makes sense. Then give me some resources, and I won't go out." "Kant, take him out." At this moment, Phoebe came. He looked at Zichen and sneered, "Since he doesn't know what's good for him, why do you care about him?" Zichen glanced at Phoebe. Other than him, Sandlery and the rest also came. Obviously, they had heard the news. Butterball looked at Phoebe and the rest, then looked at Zi-Chen and nodded. All right, if you really want to go out, I'll take you out. Let's go, Zi-Chen said directly. Ah, Kant was stunned. Donna, let's go. The stock is running out, and I'm in a hurry. Zi-Chen walked forward. Kant glanced at the rest, and they all nodded coldly. Kant followed. Zi-Chen wanted to go out. This news spread quickly and attracted the attention of many people. Then, many people followed him out of the city. This time, Zi-Chen will definitely die. Phoebe also came out. Looking at the people in his field of vision, he sneered. Sanlery and the rest nodded. With just a glance, they saw a few Six Powers Realm spirit casters. A Six Powers Realm spirit caster obviously did not come out to watch the show. Spicer, you came out too? Sanlery looked behind, and Spicer also came out. Not only me, many people came out too. They all want to see what Zi-Chen's soul power treasure is. Spicer walked over. They looked into the distance and saw a few Six Powers Realm lawbreakers. Are they going to attack too? Phoebe asked. Of course they won't attack Zi-Chen. But once Zi-Chen dies and the soul power treasure appears, it's hard to say. The reason why the Six Powers Realm lawbreakers did not attack Zi-Chen was because Spicer had already attacked once but did not succeed. The others obviously did not want to attack again because, once they failed, it would be very embarrassing. In shattering Law City, the lawbreakers valued their reputation very much. This was also why Phoebe and the rest kept finding trouble with Zi-Chen. The reputation that was lost had to be recovered. Otherwise, it would always be a joke. Lawbreakers had taboos, but spirit casters did not. Any of the Six Powers Realm who went out could attack Zi-Chen. Butterball and Kant looked at the calm Zi-Chen and asked, Aren't you afraid? Afraid of what? Zi-Chen asked back. His voice was calm and there was no trace of nervousness. I'm a little impressed by you. Kant sighed. It's obvious that your life is in danger and you're still so calm. I just saw that there are at least 5 Six Powers Realm cultivators who came out. And this is just spirit casters, not spell breakers. So what if there are many people? Zi-Chen said indifferently, Can we still join hands? Kant pursed his lips. His meaning was obvious. Is it worth it for others to attack someone like you? I said, I called you out to ask you to help me find the law-breaking beast. If you don't cooperate, I'll snatch it from you. Zi-Chen looked at Kant, who was looking around, and warned him. Don't worry, I know where it is. I'm just afraid that you can't beat it. At this moment, Kant did not dare to argue with Zi-Chen. Zi-Chen could lose his life at any time. There was no need to fall out with the other party now and be beaten up. Besides, he did not have Marshal Jinxer with him. Zi-Chen was in front and the rest were behind, maintaining a certain distance. No one came up. They were all tailing. Butterball and Kant really brought Zi-Chen to a place with law-breaking beasts. They saw 2 of them at a glance. Do you need help? Butterball asked. Zi-Chen said, Watch carefully. See if they dare to come and cause trouble. Zi-Chen, who was speaking, walked straight ahead. When the 2 law-breaking beasts saw Zi-Chen, they immediately rushed towards him. The crowd in the distance stopped. This was Zi-Chen's first battle. 2 law-breaking beasts of the 5-strength realm were much stronger than spiritual casters of the same level. Only law-breaking beasts could fight one-on-one. This time, Zi-Chen was fighting 1 against 2. In the eyes of many, it was suspicious of him being arrogant. Some people even concluded that Zi-Chen was going to throw his life away. The 2 sides met. The law-breaking beasts pounced forward. Zi-Chen struck out with his palm. Buzz! The light in his palms intertwined as if there were rules appearing in front of him. A law-breaking beast of the 5-strength realm was immediately disintegrated. Zi-Chen took a step back, avoided the attack of the other, and then struck again. Buzz! It was the same attack that swept past the body of the second law-breaking beast. The two law-breaking beasts were disintegrated one after another. In an instant the battle ended. Butterball and Kant were dumbfounded. Chapter 5078. I am really sorry. My mind is in a mess, and I really can't figure it out. I will take another day off to sort out the storyline. Thunder Marshal, take another day off. Currently in progress. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5079. Two law-breaking beasts were killed, leaving behind a total of 10 streams of pure energy. Zi-Chin stepped forward and kept the pure energy. Then he turned around and looked at the stunned Butterball. Not bad. Let's go to the next place. Butterball regained his senses and immediately followed. His heart was filled with shock, killing two law-breaking beasts in an instant and using spiritual energy. Just this move alone was much stronger than other spiritual casters of the same level. Even compared to law-breaking beasts, he was not inferior. During this time, Butterball secretly looked behind him and realized that everyone was stunned. It's not easy to come out. It's best to find a place with more law-breaking beasts. Zi-Chan looked into the distance and did not notice the people behind him. It was as if they did not exist. You're really not afraid? Butterball and Kant asked unwillingly. There's so many of them in the Six Forces state. Each of them has the ability to tear you apart. They are eyeing you covetously and can kill you at any time. Zi-Chin looked at Kant and asked, Why would the Six Forces state want to kill me? Kant subconsciously said, Because you have a treasure. Zi-Chin laughed. So they are after the treasure? Kant continued, Of course they won't be so direct, but they will create some trouble. For example, the Five Forces state will take the initiative to provoke you, just like last time. At this point, Kant immediately shut up. After all, it was not something to be proud of. Butterball finally said, There must be a reason for the Six Forces state to make a move. Zi-Chin still had a smile on his face. So, you think someone will dare to create some trouble? Butterball was stunned. Only then did he understand what Zi-Chin meant. According to Zi-Chin's previous methods, the Five Forces state would be courting death if they dared to come. He believed that no one would be so stupid. While they were talking, the two of them encountered another Five Forces realm lawbreaker beast. This time there were 6 of them. Zi-Chen's expression changed, and he excitedly slapped Butterball. Caught off guard, Butterball was knocked to the ground. You did a good job, kid. Follow me from now on. Don't follow Phoebe and those idiots. They'll get you killed sooner or later. With that, Zi-Chen took out Lu Yao's staff and ran forward. The people who followed behind all stared with wide eyes, feeling incredulous. These were 6 lawbreaker beasts. Was he going to fight 1 against 6? Lu Yao looked at his staff and armor and was infuriated. Zi-Chin was using his things to show off. Zi-Chan faced off against the law-breaking beasts and swept the staff in his hand. Everyone saw a flash of light as 3 law-breaking beasts were swept away. Then, Zi-Chin held the staff in his left hand and blocked a law-breaking beast. He struck out with his right hand, and light crisscrossed between his palms like the most ruthless rule in the world. It swept toward a law-breaking beast. The crisscrossed light swept through a law-breaking beast's body, and it disintegrated in the air. Zi-Chin was also attacked by the last law-breaking beast. The armor absorbed most of the power, and his body slid backward. With the staff in his hand on the ground, Zi-Chin steadied his body. He tapped his feet, and his body soared into the air. He raised the staff high and smashed again. A few law-breaking beasts in the air were knocked away. Zi-Chin landed on the ground, rolled, and avoided the pouncing attacks. He arrived in front of a law-breaking beast. The attack that made Butterball's heart tremble appeared again. He stood up again. He had never seen such a straight beam of light. It was crisscrossing, ruthless, and terrifying. It was like the most ruthless rule in the world, and it made him feel cold. Where the light passed, the law-breaking beasts were disintegrated and fell to the ground. With the armor, he could fight against 6 at the same time. In the distance, the people who came were shocked. This kind of combat power had far surpassed many lawbreakers. There were also some people who glanced at Liu Yao. Before Zichen came, Liu Yao was very famous. This was why he dared to trouble Zichen that day. But at that time, Liu Yao did not dare to say that he could fight against 6 at the same time. But Zichen, who had Liu Yao's armor, could. The difference in combat power between the two sides was obvious. Being stared at by some people, Liu Yao's face was very ugly. At this moment, there was a cry of surprise. The battle in front had ended. Zichen had obtained dozens of pure energy. This kind of harvest alone made many people envious. It should be known that 1 pure energy was equivalent to 100 ordinary energy. And the pure energy obtained from killing law-breaking beasts of the 5-force estate was even purer than the energy obtained from the hull of spiritual spells, because the latter was condensed and this was formed naturally. By now, everyone had a better understanding of Zichen's combat power. Those of the 5-force estate would not dare to trouble him. As for those of the 6-force estate, how to deal with them? There were many of them here, but if they wanted to fight, they would need a reason, right? Augeas' face was very ugly. He did not expect things to be so tricky. But now, he was still confident that he could kill Zichen, because Zichen's strength was limited to the 5-force estate. There was an insurmountable gap between him and the 6-force estate. Good harvest. Let's continue. Zichen turned to look at Kant. Kant nodded and followed. But this time he kept a distance from Zichen. He was a lawbreaker. How could he be manipulated by a spiritual spellcaster? Furthermore, he was sent sprawling on the ground with a single slap. It was simply too embarrassing. In Butterball's opinion, Zichen's method had created a strong deterrent force. Perhaps this trip would be more daunting than dangerous. This guy. Phoebe was very angry. Zichen's strength annoyed him. Everyone was frightened and did not dare to make a move. This made him even more irritable. But he did not dare to go up himself. He should have guessed this long ago. Looks like no one made the first move this time. Spicer gave such a conclusion. No one made a move? Are we going to let Zichen grow to the 6-force estate with the treasure? Phoebe asked unwillingly. Although this is possible, the difference between the 5 forces and the 6 forces is like heaven and earth. It is very difficult to break through. Spicer said, perhaps he will only be able to stay in the 5-force estate for the rest of his life and be the strongest 5-force estate. Yes, Spicer had already determined that Zichen was the strongest existence in the 5-force estate. Sir, there should be no one making a move against Zichen. Should we go back? In another direction of the crowd, Marcus and Albert had also followed. Albert said indifferently, let's wait and see. Perhaps things are not that simple. Augeas did not want to endure any longer. No matter what, he had to kill Zichen. Thus he looked at Liu Yao. You go. Liu Yao's expression suddenly changed. What? You go and give me a reason to make a move. Augeas said again. He is so strong. If I go up, I will die. Liu Yao's expression was very ugly. Augeas looked at him. You don't want your weapon and armor? Liu Yao's expression changed several times. That's good. You have to make a move quickly. With that, Liu Yao rushed forward and shouted, Zichen, you bandit, give me back my things. Chapter 5080. Liu Yao reprimanded Zichen loudly, implying that Zichen had stolen something from him. After witnessing Zichen's strength, he was smart enough not to get too close. Instead, he stood at a distance and shouted. Zichen glanced at Liu Yao with pity in his eyes. You're the first one to be so enthusiastic about courting death. Liu Yao's expression changed drastically and he wanted to retreat. From the corner of his eyes, he saw a light chasing after him. He had a bad feeling and immediately shouted, "Ogiest, save me!" The others saw all this with indifferent expressions. Everyone knew what Ogiest was going to do. As for Lu Yao, it would depend on his luck whether he could survive or not. The long staff whistled. Lu Yao rolled on the ground. He was in a very sorry state, but he barely dodged Zi Chen's attack. Then, using both hands and feet, he leaped forward like a magical beast. Boom! The ground where he was rolling shook and cracked, sending dust and dirt flying. Zi Chen's eyes were cold. He would not show mercy to someone who was courting death. Swoosh! Lu Yao used both hands and feet. After landing, he exerted force again and leaped forward. Zi Chen followed up with another attack, but it missed again. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. At this moment, Lu Yao's survival instinct completely broke out. It was an eye-opener for everyone. 3 attacks in a row, all of which missed. "Ogiest!" Lu Yao shouted. Because of the threat of death, his voice cracked. No one laughed at him. Instead, they admired him. Previously, they had seen Zi Chen fighting 1 against 6. In a one-on-one situation, Lu Yao could make Zi Chen miss 3 times in a row. It was not easy. Boom! Lu Yao blocked 3 attacks, but in the end he could not block the 4th one. Accompanied by a huge tremor, Lu Yao was sent flying. After landing and rolling, he took advantage of the momentum and continued to roll. At this moment, he did not feel embarrassed at all. Swoosh! Ogiest brushed past him. Lu Yao flipped over and got up. He kept retreating until he was in the crowd. At this moment, his breath was very weak. "You must succeed." Lu Yao looked at Ogiest's back. In order to get back his weapon and armor, he had really risked his life. Die. Ogiest rushed toward Zi Chen and punched him. Above his fist, a dazzling light shone, releasing a powerful aura. In Zi Chen's hand, the long staff blocked the attack. The long staff also glowed. The 2 of them looked at each other from a distance, their eyes cold. Boom! Ogiest's fist smashed onto the long staff. The powerful shockwave caused Zi Chen's body to slide backwards. Traces were plowed on the ground, and smoke and dust rose into the air. Die. Ogiest tapped his foot, and his figure soared into the air. He could have flown, but at this moment he chose to descend in an arc buzz. Above the fist, a strong light flashed again. This time, there was the light of rules lingering. Even though they were far away, everyone could still feel the intense pressure coming from the fist. This was the real body power that only 6 Forces State possessed. It was a power that far surpassed 5 Forces State. The lawbreakers in the distance could feel it more clearly. The reason why they could suppress spiritual casters was because of their own soul power. This was also the shortcoming of spiritual casters. However, lawbreakers also had a shortcoming, which was that their bodies were too weak. Once they were too close to spiritual casters during a battle, they would be seriously injured and even die if they were hit by the real body power. Therefore, the high and mighty lawbreakers were actually apprehensive of spiritual casters. Especially Zi Chen, who could ignore soul power, they were even more fearful. Ogiest's fist, which had used the real body power, whizzed down. Zi Chen used all his strength to block it. Buzz! On the long staff, a light shone. However, in the next moment, the long staff flew out of his hand. Zi Chen was also pushed back by the huge force. "My weapon!" Lu Yao, who was recovering with pure energy, saw this and his eyes lit up. This was obviously a good start. The others were slightly surprised. They were not surprised by Ogiest's strength, but by Zi Chen's tenacity. Again, Ogiest continued forward. He did not use a weapon, only his fist, but it was wrapped in the real body power. Buzz! As the fist struck out, a surge of energy surged. Zi Chen once again had that strange feeling. His body seemed to have become a thin piece of paper that could be torn apart at any time, even with the protection of the armor. This was the difference between real and fake. Under the rules, it was clearly displayed. The others watched indifferently. This was the most fundamental difference between the two sides. There were also some people whose expressions changed. If nothing unexpected happened, Chen would die soon. When the soul power treasure appeared, it would be time for them to make a move. Humph! Lu Yao snorted. The armor was about to return. At this moment, there was a cry of surprise. Oji's attack did not land, but was blocked by an object. It was the bone staff that came to this world with Chen. On the bone staff, there was a light that shone and blocked the real body power of the punch. Bang! There was a strong shock, and both of them retreated. Unexpectedly, neither of them had the upper hand. Chen was slightly startled. He looked at the bone staff in his hand. Just a moment ago, the bone staff seemed to have activated a different kind of power. Real body power. How do you have real body power? Ogiest was shocked. To be able to block real body power, it was naturally another kind of real body power. But the opponent was only in the 5-strength realm. Real body power? Chen heard, and his eyes lit up. Let's try again. He used all his strength to activate the bone staff and smashed it towards Ogi's head. Ogius shouted and threw another powerful punch. There was another roar and a strong shock. Both of them retreated again. Once again, they were evenly matched. And this time, Chen felt it very clearly. After his spiritual power entered the bone staff, there was a change. It was as if it was increased by a level. Next, Chen launched the fiercest attack towards Ogiest in front of everyone's dumbfounded expressions. A 5-strength realm was fighting against a 6-strength realm. The shock brought by this was too great. In the distance, amidst the exclamations, someone finally saw the reason. It's that weird bone weapon. Through it, the attack can be increased by a level. This caused an uproar. The reason was very simple. Chen, who was holding the bone staff, had the fighting power of a 6-strength realm. At this moment, everyone was moved. Did that mean that Chen was now equivalent to a 6-strength realm spiritual caster? And a 6-strength realm spiritual caster who was not afraid of lawbreakers? For a moment, many lawbreakers' faces turned ugly, because once the two sides started fighting, Chen would withstand the soul power attack and get close to them. Then, what awaited them would be danger. At this moment, they felt the threat of Chen, and their eyes turned cold. Chapter 5081. The expressions of the 6 Forces realm cultivators, who were just watching the show, gradually changed. The battle prowess Chen displayed had completely exceeded their expectations. It seemed that he was only a 5 Forces realm cultivator, but his current battle prowess was equivalent to a 6 Forces realm cultivator. Chen's spiritual power was forcibly increased by a level by the bone rod, and he was evenly matched with Ogiest. How can this be? Phoebe was shocked. How can there be such a strange weapon in this world? That's not a weapon, it's a bone rod. Spicer's eyes flashed, and he said in a low voice, "The bones of law-breaking beasts above the 6 Forces realm can be used to refine weapons. But the bone rod in his hand doesn't seem to have been refined, and yet it has such power. It must have been very powerful when it was alive." Phoebe gritted his teeth and said angrily, "This damn guy, his luck is really good. He got so many treasures." Compared to the bone rod's current power, the rod that was sent flying was nothing. Ogius started to get impatient after attacking for a long time without success. At this moment, Chen's mind moved, and the slaughter spirit appeared. Like a ray of light, it pierced towards Ogiest's forehead. Ogiest was shocked and subconsciously raised his hand to block. At this moment, the bone rod smashed downwards with a tyrannical force and landed on his body. Bang! Ogiest was sent flying until he was 10 feet away, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His face gradually darkened, and his eyes were surging with cold, killing intent. His mouth opened slightly, as if he wanted to say something. Swoosh! Zi Chen held the bone rod in his hand, and under the exclamations he chose to take the initiative to attack. So what if he was a Six Forces realm cultivator? He was not afraid at all. This is too barbaric. Kant, who had already retreated, looked in front of him in shock. Zi Chen's appearance broke his understanding of common sense. Right now, he, a Five Forces realm cultivator, actually dared to take the initiative to attack a Six Forces realm cultivator. What kind of courage did this require? Zi Chen used facts to tell Kant that courage was not required. Just strength was enough. Bang! 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 Powerful energy vibrated in front of him, stirring up countless ripples. Under everybody's shocked gazes, Augeas started to retreat. In the face of Zi Chen's strong attacks, he gradually lost ground. This scene caused many people's expressions to change. In the eyes of many spellbreakers, Zi Chen had become even more of a threat. Some people glanced around as if they were communicating with their eyes. "My lord!" Marcus's eyes were filled with shock. Ape Bert was also very surprised. Clearly, he did not expect that the young man who needed his protection back then would grow to such a level. At this moment, Zi Chen was undoubtedly the center of attention. Everyone was shocked. It also made the spellbreakers fearful. Ape Bert's eyes were burning. Boom! With a powerful vibration, Augeas was beaten back again. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Augeas said coldly, "Why did you stop?" After glancing at Augeas, Zi Chen didn't say anything. After that, he looked at Kant and said, "Let's go to the next place." Kant was stunned when he heard this, and he was slightly puzzled. The battle wasn't over yet, so why were they leaving? "Want to leave? Do you think it's possible?" Augeas' voice was cold. There was also some commotion in the crowd. Zi Chen said, "If you fight with your life on the line, I believe that the one who dies will definitely be you." "I don't think you have the guts to fight with your life on the line, right?" Augeas' expression was ugly as he said disdainfully, "With just you? Are you worthy of fighting with your life on the line? I can also exhaust you to death. If you don't believe me, you can try." Of course, Zi Chen would not try because it was very disadvantageous to him, even if he could kill Augeas. Zi Chen walked to the side and picked up the long staff that was sent flying. Compared to the bone staff, this long staff only had toughness left. Being underestimated by Zi Chen, Augeas' expression became more and more unsightly. However, seeing that the other party was about to leave, he did not go forward to entangle. Of course, he did not believe that a mere 5-strength realm could kill him. However, if the two of them were injured while fighting with their lives on the line, then the gains would not make up for the losses. Wait. At this moment, a person stood up. It was Spike. As he walked out, several people followed. These were all spellbreakers. Augeas was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted. These people felt threatened and planned to eliminate Zi Chen here. Are they going to join forces? Augeas was somewhat expectant. He did not mind at all if everyone joined forces to kill Zi Chen. Zi Chen stopped and looked at these people who came with ill intentions. Kant retreated to the side. He looked at Zi Chen with pity in his eyes. Several 6-strength realm spellbreakers had come. Even if Zi Chen had a treasure, he felt that it was impossible for him to survive. "What do you mean by this? Are you planning to join forces?" A voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. 2 spirit spellbreakers walked over. The leader was Albert, and beside him was Marcus, who braced himself. Compared to other 6-strength realm spellbreakers, he, a 5-strength realm spellbreaker, did not even have the right to speak. Spike looked at Albert and said with a frown, "What do you mean?" Ape Bert smiled faintly and said, "Nothing. I just want to ask, why are you stopping my people?" "Your people?" A cold glint flashed in Spike's eyes. "Are you sure?" Albert cupped his fists in the direction of Broken Law City and said, "Lord Eden personally assigned them. What do you think?" A hint of anger appeared on Spike's face. You're using Eden to suppress me? I wouldn't dare. I'm just stating the truth. Albert said, Chen went out this time to clean up the spellbreakers and complete the mission. I didn't see how he offended you. Chen was surprised by Albert's appearance. After all, from what he knew from Marcus, this lord was famous for protecting himself. Now, it was rare to see someone who did not hesitate to offend a few spellbreakers to speak up. Could it be that Lord Eden? After all, there were big shots above Albert. You want to protect him? Spike asked again. The others also had cold eyes. No, I'm just learning the truth. Albert said, If something goes wrong and Lord Eden asks about it, I can explain it, right? Spicer glanced at Abbott, then glanced at Chen, and a meaningful smile flashed across his face. He turned around and left. The other spellbreakers did not say anything and followed him. Albert was stunned. He did not expect these people to be so easy to talk to. So he looked at Chen and said, Chen, your mission is complete. You can go back. Chen cupped his fists and said, Lord, I still want to walk around. This time, he only obtained a few dozen streams of pure power. According to his refining speed, they would be gone soon. Instead of coming out again, it was better to stay here and go back when he had enough. After all, no one should come to trouble him now. Go back. Albert said again. Chapter 5082. After Spicer and the others left, the others also left. They didn't continue to cause trouble for Chen. Naturally, they were somewhat unwilling to leave. However, they gave up just like that. Of course, the main reason was that the 6th strength state chose to give up. The others didn't have the ability to pursue the matter. Chen returned with 8 Bert. On the way back, he greeted Butterball and Kant. They clearly despised him, but they didn't dare to do anything. Under the disdainful gazes of their friends, they pretended not to see him. Marcus was very excited. The 5 strength state was comparable to the 6 strength state. Chen had created another miracle. After returning to the city, Chen didn't go back immediately. Instead, he followed Ape Bert back to his residence. After returning to his residence, Ape Bert waved his hand and motioned for Marcus to wait outside. He and Chen clearly had something to talk about. Marcus closed the door and left. Ape Bert smiled and said sit. Chen shook his head. What orders do you have for me, sir? Ape Bert said, Of course not. Your current combat strength is comparable to the 6th strength state. I'm very surprised to hear that. This means that you and I are on equal footing. Chen said, You flatter me, sir. I'm just relying on external objects. It's not true ability. Chen, don't belittle yourself. If you're capable, then you're capable. Ape Bert changed the topic and said, However, ability isn't the only way to survive in Dharma Breaker City. Take me, for example. I've been in the 6th strength state for many years, and my combat strength isn't bad, but what can I do? I have Lord Eden above me. I don't dare to disobey him at all. Chen nodded. Just like before, those Dharma breakers were fearless, but when I mentioned Lord Eden's name, you see, everyone was scared and retreated. Ape Bert smiled and said, So, in this place, although ability is important, power and relationships can't be ignored. You're right, sir. Chen immediately cupped his fists and said, Chen has learned something. I'll remember it. Ape Bert continued. Last time I went to see Lord Eden, I discovered that he has a fondness for some strange things. Chen remained silent. Sometimes big shots are like this. Their tempers are unpredictable. They like one thing today and another tomorrow. Of course, other than liking, it was also the same for people. Sometimes, if it felt that you were not bad, it would naturally protect you and even reward you with many resources, allowing you to reach an unimaginable realm. But sometimes, if you don't like them, then they can only be cast aside. It's hard to say whether they'll live or die. Chen lowered his head and remained silent, But at this moment he recalled Spicer's meaningful expression when he left. Could it be that the other party had already guessed it? Living here, it's not a big deal to lose some combat power. As long as he had the protection of his master, there would be no danger to his life. But without Milord's protection, even if they have a body full of battle strength, they will still be in a precarious situation. Looking at Zichen, who was still silent, Ape Bert smiled and said, "I'm just saying casually. Just treat it as a casual chat. Zichen, don't think too much. All right, you can go back first. By the way, call Marcus over. I have something to tell him." Zichen went out and Marcus walked in. Zichen didn't stay in this mansion. He walked straight out of the mansion and waited for Marcus at the door. At this moment, he really couldn't calm down. None of them were good people. Everyone had their own agenda and was selfish. A moment later, Marcus walked out. Zichen saw that his expression wasn't too good, but he didn't ask much. The two of them walked towards the residence. When they were about to reach the residence, Marcus finally couldn't help but ask, "What did Milord say to you?" "Nothing." Zichen naturally understood what Ape Bert meant, but he pretended not to know. In this place, was it useless to have strong combat power? Was it useful to rely on Milord? What a joke! If that was really the case, he would have been dead long ago. Marcus said, "Milord said that in order to prevent similar dangers from happening again, you shouldn't go out. Stay in the city." "All right." Zichen nodded. "I'm very surprised that Milord was willing to help this time." Marcus smiled and said, "It seems that Milord really treats you as one of his own. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so considerate of you." Zichen nodded and didn't explain. After returning to his residence, Zichen sat cross-legged. He didn't refine the energy. This time, he only obtained 40 streams of pure energy. Before he was sure of Ape Bert's true intentions, he had to use the energy sparingly. The first day was peaceful, and no one came to cause trouble. In Pofa City, discussions about Zichen had already spread like wildfire. The next day, Zichen walked out of his room and stood outside the door to stretch. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that someone was staring in his direction. Zichen decided to walk around, and he attracted a lot of attention along the way. He found Kant again, and when the latter saw him, it was as if he had eaten a rat. "Why are you here again?" "I'm here to see you." Zichen's answer made Kant curl his lips. "I'm telling you, don't even think about it this time. No one will take you out again. No one will take you out." Zichen looked at Kant. "What do you know?" Kant shook his head. "I don't know, but if you want to go out, it's obviously impossible." Seeing Zichen frown slightly, Butterball and Kant didn't know why, but they felt some compassion in their hearts. They suddenly said, "Let me give you a piece of advice. Save what you can." Zichen's expression changed slightly. He wasn't stupid and understood Kant's true intentions. "Thanks." Seeing Butterball's determined expression, Zichen turned and left. This time, he went straight out of the city. Butterball and Kant saw this, and their expressions changed, but they didn't say anything. Halfway through, 2 4-strength realm spirit casters appeared and stopped Zichen. They indifferently told him not to go out. This was the rule. In Pofa City, spirit casters had to follow many rules, but spellbreakers had it slightly better. Zichen understood Ape Bert's intentions. He didn't say anything and went to the Hall of Spirit Spells. With Zichen's arrival, many people looked at him strangely. Then they saw Zichen take out 2 strands of pure energy and exchange them for 200 strands of ordinary energy. All this time they had only seen people exchanging pure energy, but they had never seen anyone exchanging pure energy for magic power. This attracted a lot of attention. Zichen took these strands of energy and went back. He knew that he wouldn't be able to refine pure energy for a long time. These ordinary strands of energy could only sustain his basic livelihood. As for how long this situation would last, Zichen wasn't sure. However, according to the rules, it wouldn't last more than a month. This was because he had to do a mission every month. Therefore, Zi-Chun had been waiting to see what Ape Bert's intentions were. A month later, Marcus came and gave Zi-Chun a mission. He was to bring a basket of crystals to the Hall of Spirit Spells. Chapter 5083. Zi-Chun was considered to have completed his mission by receiving 1 energy as a reward. Everything was within the rules. Marcus' heart was heavy as he watched Zi-Chun walk out of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. He would be a fool if he still did not realize what was going on. His Excellency did not do this to protect him. Let's go back. Zi-Chun approached him and smiled. Marcus looked guilty and said, "It seems that I have harmed you." Zi-Chun was not afraid of the spellbreakers. He had completely suppressed them and caused them to suffer a great loss. He had brought honor to all the spiritual spellcasters. He did not expect that the problem would occur to his own people. The spiritual spellcasters who lived here never dared to go against the spellbreakers. Zi-Chun was the first. They could not fight against outsiders, but they could fight against each other internally. Just like now, His Excellency used the rules against Zi-Chun. Zi-Chun could not do anything about it. This has nothing to do with you. Zi-Chun was on his way back. He had experienced this kind of thing too many times. He had understood human nature the moment he fell off the cliff. Many people seemed to have heard the news. They all had mocking smiles on their faces. Phoebe and the others also came. At this moment, they would not miss the opportunity to join in the fun. Zi-Chun, I heard that you went out on a mission today. You must have gained a lot, right? Phoebe walked up and smiled at him. Zi-Chun glanced at Phoebe and did not say anything. You are a 5 forces realm expert, and your battle power is comparable to a 6 forces realm expert. Even if we join forces, we can't beat you. Phoebe clicked his tongue and said, I think with your battle power, you would need at least 20 streams of pure energy to go out on a mission, right? Someone next to her said, Phoebe, you're thinking too little. This kind of great expert obtained 40 strands of pure energy the last time he went out. This time he has a mission, so he'll at least get 50 strands of pure energy. Wow! 50 streams of pure energy. We are also very envious. It would be great if there were 50 streams, but I just saw that there was only 1 stream of normal energy. It can't be. Ordinary energy was something that even a cultivator at the 4th stage of strength would disdain to take. Great expert, you didn't take it, did you? The few of them were all smiling proudly. Zi-Chun glanced at them. Phoebe said, What, you want to fight? Fighting is forbidden here. There are rules. Zi-Chun, who was in a bad mood, said coldly, Don't mess with me. Otherwise, if I take things too hard one day and kill all of you, don't blame me for making a loss. What do you mean? Even if you kill us, you will. Halfway through his words, Phoebe reacted and said angrily, You dare to look down on us? It was obvious that the deal Zi-Chun was talking about was exchanging his life for the lives of these people. However, they were all spellbreakers. Their lives were much more precious than Zi-Chun's. However, they did not force Zi-Chun to leave with Marcus. You're already like this, and you're still pretending in front of us? What's the point? Phoebe looked at Zi-Chun's back and spat fiercely. Damn it! Those cowards of spirit spellcasters don't dare to do anything to us, but they're quite good at dealing with their own people. Butterball and Kant said, This time it's quite ruthless. Zi-Chun might be trapped here until he dies. Then he said with emotion, What a pity that such a powerful existence has such a fate. Phoebe looked at Kant. If you don't kill him like this, do you have other ways to kill him? I think you're out of your mind. You're actually feeling sorry for that guy. Kant said, How can it not be a pity? He has 2 treasures on him. I don't know who will benefit from it. In that case, it's quite a pity. Phoebe said regretfully, However, the higher-ups have already told us not to interfere. Then we can only stay out of it. Almost everyone in Pofa City knew about Ziqin, and at the same time, they admired Ape's cleverness. During this month, Ziqin stayed in his room and barely refined the energy. He relied on his own cultivation to maintain the consumption. It was obviously unrealistic for Ape to want to trap him to death. However, his progress would be much slower. For the people here, the most worthless thing was probably time, so they had not reached the point of despair yet. The next month, another mission came. Ziqin was required to move some things. They were extremely heavy and consumed a lot of energy. After Ziqin finished, his energy was almost depleted. This time he obtained 2 ordinary energies, which were obviously far less than the consumption. Ziqin took the energy and refined it as he walked. His strength recovered very slowly. Ape sat in his room and listened to his subordinate's report. He smiled faintly. Everything will continue in 2 days. Here, time was the most worthless thing. But Ape did not want to wait for a long time. 2 days later, the same mission came again. This disrupted Ziqin's plan. If the reward was not enough, he would have to consume his own energy. After a long time, he would not be able to make ends meet. During this time, Ziqin took out 2 more pure energies and went to the Hall of Spiritual Spells to exchange them for ordinary energy. Then the missions continued. The more effort, the less the reward. During this time, no one cared. If this continued, Ziqin's energy would eventually be depleted. On this day, Ziqin returned to his room, exhausted. Marcus was here. He had not been here for a long time. Ziqin, you can't go on like this. You'd better. At this point, the rest of the words couldn't be said. Ziqin said, I can still live with the things. If I hand them over, who do you think can protect me? Ape. After Marcus left, he secretly left behind 10 streaks of pure energy. Ziqin put away the pure energies and began to recover. During this time, he did not consume any energy. After one night, all his energy was recovered. Ziqin, who was not on a mission today, took the initiative to walk out of his room. He held Lu Yao's staff in his hand. It was obviously a good item of high quality. Ziqin planned to sell it. Along the way, he saw Lu Yao and was ridiculed. During this time, many people coveted the weapon, but no one was willing to buy it. So, Ziqin went to the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Here, one could trade freely and buy some weapons. However, when Ziqin approached him with a long staff, the other party actually refused. It was normal to exchange for energy. Everyone had the right to do so, but there was no mandatory requirement to exchange for weapons. So Ziqin failed and walked out. He knew he was being targeted, but there was nothing he could do. So he went to find Kant. Kant was very surprised when he heard Ziqin's intention. Are you crazy? I'm a spellbreaker. This thing is useless to me. Ziqin turned and left. Watching Ziqin leave, looking at his lonely back. Maybe he came here because he had no other choice. For some reason, he felt a little ashamed. He immediately shouted, Wait, I want this thing. He immediately ran forward and took out the pure spellbreaker power. This was a power that only spellbreakers could use. Spiritual spellbreakers could not use it, but it could be exchanged. He took out 100 of them. Here, I only have this much now. If you're not in a hurry, I'll go back and find you some more. Kant handed the energy to Ziqin. Ziqin took it, then looked deeply at Butterball and turned to leave. He went to the Hall of Spiritual Spells and directly exchanged for spiritual power. 1-for-1 exchange. This was within the rules. After that, Ziqin took the energy and went straight out of the city. Chapter 5084. If he continued to stay here, sooner or later, Ziqin would be exhausted to death by the so-called rules. Leaving was the only way. Of course, since he was here, he couldn't just leave casually, just like how Ziqin couldn't go out of the city to hunt law-breaking beasts. There were rules too. But now, Ziqin didn't want to follow the rules anymore. Why didn't he go out of the city, but back to where he came from? Because Zichen wasn't familiar with this place. Once he left, he would definitely be hunted down. Zichen wasn't prepared to deal with so many powerhouses here. So he wanted to leave the city and go back to where he came from. At least he had the home advantage and was familiar with the environment. When Phoebe and the others heard the news and rushed over, Zichen had already finished exchanging energy at the Hall of Spiritual Spells. This time he didn't exchange for normal energy, but spiritual energy. Phoebe looked at the long rod in Kant's hand and said, "Are you stupid? You can't use this stupid thing. Why do you want to trade with him?" Butterball opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to respond. "In this place, no one will trade with him. Except for you, you idiot." Phoebe said angrily, "Sometimes I wonder if you're really an idiot. If you don't exchange energy with him, he'll die here sooner or later. If you give him energy, he'll live for a long time." The others also scolded Butterball. Butterball lowered his head. He was in the wrong this time, but he didn't argue. Just then, a lawbreaker suddenly came from afar. When he was still some distance away, he shouted, "Come with me. Zichen seems to want to leave the city." "Leave the city?" Phoebe's expression changed as she said, "How dare he? How dare he ignore the rules? Does he think he's a lawbreaker?" Singlary was confused. That shouldn't be. He got so much energy from Kant this time. It's enough for him to survive for a long time. Why does he want to leave the city? That person said excitedly, "Not this city, but that outside the city, where he came from. He actually wants to leave this place." Everyone was shocked when they heard this. This guy is quite bold. Phoebe's eyes flashed, and then he patted Kant hard and praised, "Good boy, you are not stupid. It seems that you are really smart." Everyone else was stunned. Even Kant didn't understand Phoebe's sudden change in attitude. "Brat, you're really extraordinary." "Indeed, I didn't expect this either." Phoebe said, "Only by giving Zichen enough energy will he have the guts to leave and fight with us. If he didn't exchange for it, then he who had no energy left could only stay here and wait for death. But it's different now. With energy, this kid's guts have grown. Let's go, let's go." Phoebe said excitedly, "Once Zichen leaves this time, he will definitely be hunted down. This time he will definitely die. Just wait and see. The Six Powers Realm cultivators will no longer have to worry about us." Sanlali and the rest came to their senses and immediately followed behind. Butterball and Kant followed at the back. At this moment he muttered, "Could it be that I have harmed him?" He recalled Zichen's expression. If he had rejected Zichen, would he have stayed in the city obediently and not risked his life? Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Now that things had come to this, he could only follow. As they followed, they saw Zichen heading out of the city. Along the way, there were quite a few people looking in all directions, but no one stopped him. They knew very well that Zichen was going against the rules of Pofa City. In Pofa City, there had never been a case of a spiritual caster breaking the rules. Zichen would be the first. Zichen's expression was calm. He wore Lu Yao's armor and walked out of the city. Marcus appeared in the crowd. Looking at Zichen leaving alone, he felt ashamed. If he had known this would happen, he would not have brought Zichen to Pofa City. But now, once he left, he would become the enemy of the entire Pofa City. At that time, the Pofa breakers and spiritual casters would not let him go. No matter how strong he was, how could he fight against so many experts? "Zichen, don't be rash." Marcus immediately shouted when he thought of the situation Zichen was going to face. He shuddered in fear. Zichen did not turn around, as if he did not hear Marcus' voice. The others looked at Marcus as if they were looking at a monster. It was as if they were saying, "No one is stopping you, so why are you talking so much? If you leave now, you won't be able to turn back?" Marcus clenched his teeth and said, "At that time, you will become the enemy of the whole world." Becoming the enemy of the whole world might be a bit heavy, but it was definitely true. Once he left the city, he would have no friends. Although he did not have any friends now, He did not have so many enemies either. Marcus seemed to want to say something, but at this moment, Ape Bert's voice sounded. Marcus, you're talking too much. He doesn't even care about you. Why do you have to be so nice to him? Ape Bert walked over from afar. Moreover, Ape Bert's subordinates, never meddle in other people's business. Everyone knows this. Yes, I understand. Marcus quickly bowed. The others looked at Ape Bert, and many people's expressions changed. This once inconspicuous existence had gradually become famous recently. Zi-Chin, whom even a Six Forces realm spellbreaker could not do anything to, had actually been defeated by him, and had been completely subdued by him. It could be said that Zi-Chen was able to reach this point because Ape Bert used all his strength to suppress him. Zi-Chin, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped when he heard this voice. As he stopped, everyone stopped as well. Zi-Chen had not left yet, so according to the rules, no one could attack him. Now, both sides were not enemies yet. Zi-Chen looked at Ape Bert and said coldly, I hope to see you again outside the city. If you have the ability, I don't mind giving you all the supreme treasures on me. Then, Zi-Chen laughed mockingly. Of course, the premise is that you have the guts. It's not a big deal to play tricks. You have to have the ability. Ape Bert said, Zi-Chin, what do you mean by this? Are you dissatisfied with the mission I gave you? Then we can try to adjust it. Don't break the rules of Dharma Breaker City, because once you break the rules, no one will protect you anymore. Protection? Your hypocrisy is disgusting. Besides, you have the guts to do it, but don't have the guts to admit it. I really look down on you. Zi-Chen turned around and continued to walk out of the city. Ape Bert looked at Zi-Chen coldly. When they were about to reach the outside of the city, two people appeared. They were the guards in charge of this place. After they appeared, they warned Zi-Chen not to break the rules. While talking, the two of them looked at him mockingly. It was obvious that it was just a routine thing. In fact, they were looking forward to Zi-Chen's departure. Zi-Chen did not disappoint them. He directly took out the token. Buzz! Zi-Chen did not hesitate and directly activated the token. The next moment, Zi-Chen disappeared. Exclamations sounded around because Zi-Chen had broken the rules and would become a great enemy of Dharma Breaker City. Kill. Chapter 5085. There was an uproar in Pofa City. Although they had guessed that Zi-Chan was going to break the rules and leave, it was another matter to see it with their own eyes. He was the first spirit caster in history to break the rules. In everyone's words, he was very daring. Shouts rang out, and some people immediately chased after him. Of course, these people were mainly in the 5-strength state. Most of them were there to join in the fun. If there was a chance to take advantage, they would not let it go. The 6-strength state was very calm because they also needed to follow some rules, so they needed to wait for a while. At the very least, they needed to get orders from their superiors. He really went out. Let's go too. Phoebe's eyes were shining with excitement. The others were nodding. Zi-Chin was already an enemy of the world. It would be difficult for him to turn the situation around. Everyone followed him out and could see the scene of a drowning dog being beaten. They believed that this time there would not be a miracle. Zi-Chen would definitely die. I have to wait. At this moment, Butterball and Kant suddenly spoke. Wait for what? Phoebe did not understand. I have to find a piece of martial crystal, just in case. As soon as Butterball and Kant finished speaking, their heads were hit hard. Phoebe angrily rebuked. Are you stupid? Zi-Chin can't even take care of himself, and he dares to rob us? Butterball covered his head. What if? There is no what if. This time he will definitely die. Phoebe was very confident. He will definitely die. Butterball said again, but what if we are too close and accidentally fall into his hands? This, Phoebe was startled. Thinking about it, it seemed to be a possibility. He hesitated slightly and said, Can't we just stay away from him? However, when he said this, he was obviously not confident. After all, he had suffered many losses in Zi-Chen's hands. If that guy did not see anything, he would really kill them. It was better to be safe than sorry. What if they bumped into him? After hesitating, Phoebe also felt that they should find a piece of martial crystal and bring it with them. At least it could be used for self-defense. And so they all went back. Those 6 Forces Realm Spirit Mages had all left because they needed to wait for orders from above. However, many of those 5 Forces Realm Spirit Mages who had left were spies. As for the 6 Forces Realm Spellbreakers, they seemed to know that they could not kill Zi-Chen. Since they had the authority, they were not in a hurry to chase after him. Zi-Chen reached the outskirts of the city and ran towards the camp where he was previously. Before leaving, there were still some things that needed to be done. When he saw Miao Pengfei and Hu Zhang, he didn't have time to explain. He only told them that no matter what happened, they had to insist that they weren't close. The 2 of them were dumbfounded as they watched Zi-Chen leave. Not long after, the sounds of battle could be heard. Those 5 Strengths Realm cultivators chased after them and asked if they had seen Zi-Chen. The people outside the city had never seen such a scene before. They were all scared silly. No one dared to hide anything and immediately pointed in the direction Zi-Chen had escaped. Ape Bert didn't come out, but Marcus followed him out. He knew Miao Pengfei, but he didn't say much. Through the directions that others had given to Zi-Chen, he seemed to have vaguely guessed where Zi-Chen was going. Not good there. His expression changed as he sensed that something was wrong. However, he didn't warn everyone. At this point, it seemed that Zi-Chen had nowhere to go. He followed behind. It could be expected that the sky would be pierced through next. And the cause of all this was not the doing of the lawless spellbreakers, but a spirit mage who had followed the rules for many years. When he thought of Lord Apebert, Marcus felt an indescribable discomfort. Why had Lord become like this? Zi-Chen, stop. Don't run if you have the ability. Kid, there are so many people chasing you. Where can you run to? Quickly surrender. Under the guidance of the people who chased out, they finally found Zi-Chen's traces. Immediately, some people shouted loudly. Zi-Chen lowered his head and hurried on, ignoring the shouts of the crowd. Seeing that Zi-Chen ignored them, the crowd shouted even more vigorously. One person shouted a lot, which made Zi-Chen a little irritated. Therefore, Zi-Chen stopped, turned around, and looked at the crowd that was rushing over. Many of them were in the 5-strength state. Almost all of them were in the 5-strength state. Kill! Zi-Chen shouted and rushed towards the group alone. This made everyone's expressions change drastically. They didn't expect that just shouting a few words would anger the other party. However, when some people saw this, their eyes lit up and said, "Everyone, this is a rare opportunity. If you don't seize it this time, you won't have another chance." It was obvious that everyone present was in the 5-strength state. Once they killed Zi-Chen, they would obtain the supreme treasure by chance. However, if they waited until the 6th-strength state came, it would be difficult for them to have such an opportunity again. Therefore, many people were tempted and shouted again, "Everyone, let's work together to kill the enemy." Zi-Chen approached. Wearing his armor, he took out his bone staff and hit it forward. Buzz! He fully activated the power of the bone staff and it flew forward. As the light fell, more than half of the bodies of 2 people in the 5-strength state who were enveloped by the light disappeared. Before they could be treated, their bodies disappeared. During this time, several attacks fell on Zi-Chen's body, but they were blocked by his armor. Lu Yao's armor had a good defense. Buzz! The second attack fell and 2 more people disappeared. This kind of scene of instant annihilation caused everyone to be endlessly terrified. Although the supreme treasure was important, their lives were more precious. Moreover, no one wanted to be the first to die. Therefore, after Zi-Chen's 2 attacks, a strange scene appeared. When Zi-Chen moved forward, the crowd began to retreat. Ziqin had scared off a group of people by himself. Just like that, after taking the lives of 2 more people in the 5-strength state, Ziqin turned and left. The crowd was stunned and did not dare to follow him immediately. This was because Ziqin might turn back and come back. At that time, the person who was at the front would definitely die. Therefore, the crowd followed behind and kept a distance from Ziqin. During this time, they did not dare to shout for fear of provoking Ziqin again. Soon night fell. Ziqin did not stop and continued to move forward. The crowd was afraid of losing him, so they closed the distance between them. When Ziqin walked past a high and low area, he went around to the side and attacked the crowd when they least expected it. The crowd immediately scattered like birds and beasts. This time, because it was too chaotic and Ziqin caught them off guard, more than 10 people died. Ziqin left again, leaving behind the others who were still in a state of shock. Everyone followed behind him cautiously. Only when the sun had risen did they relax. Therefore, for the next few days and nights, the crowd kept a certain distance from Ziqin. "I know where he's going," Sanglari, who had followed up again, exclaimed when she saw the familiar path. Phoebe and the others looked at her. When they came out with the martial crystals, they heard that Ziqin had turned back and killed people. This time he was even more agile. They were immediately glad. "He's going to the mine with the killing crystals." Sanglari was puzzled. But is he going to use the killing crystals to deal with everyone? She could not understand because everyone present was in the 5-strength state and could completely block the attack of the killing intent. Ziqin's move was obviously useless. Chapter 5086. Regarding this mineral vein, there was probably no one more familiar than Ziqin. This was his turning point. If not for the fact that he had nowhere else to go, he wouldn't have come back, because there was a hidden danger here. But now he had nowhere to go. He could only come here to fight for a chance of survival. Even if there was no chance of survival, he had to drag more people down with him. As Ziqin stopped, those 5-strength state cultivators also stopped. They didn't dare to get too close. Ziqin looked at the crowd. Everyone was also looking at Ziqin. Both sides just stared at each other. No one dared to make a move. Not even a single person dared to clamor. Next, they just had to wait. Wait for the 6-strength state to arrive. After all, this was a battle between them. Those in the 5-strength state would only die. In everyone's knowledge, Ziqin already had 3 treasures on him. The soul power treasure, the bone staff treasure, and that strange light. The 6-strength state didn't disappoint Ziqin. Soon they arrived. The first one was the lawbreaker, Spicer. After he appeared, he didn't make a move. Instead, he stood in front. Phoebe and the others stood beside him, pointing at Ziqin and whispering to each other. Spicer said, "Let's wait. I think the lawbreakers won't make a move first." He had already failed once. Naturally, he wouldn't embarrass himself again. So, if the lawbreakers wanted to get the treasures, they had to wait for the lawbreakers to kill Ziqin first. Then a chaotic battle would break out. The treasures were obtained by one's own ability. The lawbreakers had a lot of power. They could completely ignore the rules. So they came quickly. Whether it was to fight for the treasures or to watch the show, more than 10 people came in the blink of an eye. The number was still increasing. After they arrived, they didn't make a move. They just watched from the front. Ziqin wasn't in a hurry. He even sat down cross-legged. The sky gradually darkened. Ziqin retreated and stopped at the entrance of the cave. He didn't go in. He looked ahead. The bonfire was rising. Everyone stayed in the distance. They were still pointing and mocking. However, they were very careful to suppress it. Early the next morning, a long whistle sounded. The lawbreakers had finally arrived. There were dozens of them, almost twice as many as the spellbreakers. Following their arrival, a commotion broke out in the crowd. If nothing unexpected happened, the battle should begin soon. "Ziqin, I want you dead." There was no dialogue or discussion. There was not even any moral suppression, nor did he place himself on the side of absolute justice, because it was completely unnecessary. It was also because this was outside the city and there were no rules. In a place where there was no need to abide by the rules, the law of the jungle prevailed. August attacked Zichen. He was the one who initiated the battle. Zichen held the bone stick in his hand, looking at Ogiest, who was dashing forward. A cold light shot out from his eyes. "Roll over here. Let's have a good fight." Ever since he came here, he had been targeted for no reason, and it happened again and again. This time, he was undoubtedly the most miserable one. He had nowhere to go in the city, so he could only retreat. Therefore, Zichen, who had a belly full of anger, also wanted to fight to his heart's content. Why was he always the one being bullied? Buzz! The bone stick emitted a light. After the enhancement, the bone stick had an ability that was not weak. Bang! A strong vibration caused August's body to retreat backward. Zichen's feet tapped, and his body leaped high. He could not fly, so his body fell in an arc, smashing toward August's head. The other Six Forces realm spirit casters landed one after another, standing in another direction, facing the spell breakers from afar. Boom! A strong force came from the front, forming a violent fluctuation. August's body retreated again. "Go to hell!" He roared, using the rule of true power. However, under the bone stick, the rule of true power was dissolved in an instant. Zichen, who had the bone stick, was equivalent to a Six Forces realm spirit caster. Naturally, he was not afraid of the opponent. August's face was very ugly. He was not satisfied that he could not suppress Zichen. Of course, Zichen was also not satisfied. It was not his intention to fight to a draw with August. He held the bone stick tightly, his eyes cold. His heart was filled with endless anger. Dong! As if sensing the change in his mood, Zichen's heart suddenly jumped, and a ripple spread out in his heart lake. Zichen felt that the blood in his body suddenly flowed faster. His body was like a flame that was about to burn. His fighting spirit burst out. Dong! His heart was still beating, strong and powerful. Waves of ripples surged in his heart lake. Die! Zichen stepped on the ground, and the ground under his feet immediately cracked. He once again attacked August. August said coldly, "It's useless. You can't do anything to me." Light circulated around his body. His hands blocked in front of him, and true power surged out from his arms. The bone stick in Zichen's hand smashed down high. Along with the strong vibration, August's body flew backward, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking. His arms drooped down. Both of his arms had been broken. There was an uproar in the distance. Apparently, no one had thought that such a scene would happen. Previously, they were evenly matched. Why was there a gap now? Dong! Zichen's heart was still beating vigorously. There was energy surging in his heart, turning into power. At this moment, Zichen felt as if he had an inexhaustible supply of energy, as well as an inexhaustible supply of power. Forward sweep. Infinite radiance sprinkled down, bringing along a dangerous aura. Boom! August coughed out blood and flew backward. He who had a real body was obviously injured. The battle between the two sides had changed from being evenly matched to gradually losing. In Zichen's hand, the bone stick smashed down again and again. Every time, he used all of his strength. August coughed out blood again and again. His eyes had a touch of fear. He didn't know why Zichen suddenly became strong, and he had the intention to retreat. So many people had come this time. He was just fighting the first battle. There was no need to lose his life here. Buzz! At this moment, the slaughter spirit appeared and went straight between the opponent's eyebrows. Puff! The slaughter spirit pierced through his head. August let out a loud cry and immediately retreated in a sorry state. The others were shocked. It was obvious that Ziqin, who was in the 5-strength state, had the absolute upper hand. If August didn't run, he would probably die. Phoebe and the others were extremely shocked. Fortunately, there were many people this time. If there were only 1 or 2, they would probably be scared away when they saw such a scene. This combat strength is too terrifying. August retreated. Ziqin did not chase after him. He held the bone stick in his hand, and his gaze wandered among the crowd. Finally it fell on Ape. "You get over here and die." Ziqin's behavior was obviously a direct provocation. This made Ape's face become extremely gloomy. However, looking at August's miserable appearance, he didn't think that he had the absolute ability to kill Ziqin. Therefore, he said directly, "Everyone, let's join forces. Kill him, and the treasure will be obtained by our own ability." Chapter 5087. Hubert sneered and walked out of the crowd. He looked at Ziqin with cold eyes. He no longer suppressed his desire to seize the treasure. There were no rules here, and he could kill indefinitely. Ziqin smiled mockingly at Hubert, then hooked his finger provocatively. "Come here if you have the ability. Get lost if you don't." Ziqin really looked down on Hubert. A guy who only knew how to play tricks was destined to have no future. Even if he died here today, Hubert would not be able to get his things. Of course, Ziqin was still very depressed that he had been trapped by such a person and had no way out. "Humph, little thing, do you really think I can't kill you?" No matter how shrewd Apebert was, he could not tolerate being humiliated by a 5-strength realm cultivator in front of so many people. "You're just an ant." He rushed directly at Ziqin, and the energy around him surged quickly. Ziqin gripped the bone staff in his hand tightly. The blood in his body was almost boiling, full of powerful energy. Dong! His heart was still beating vigorously, providing strength to his body. Boom! The first strike of the staff smashed down, and a large amount of light scattered. Hubert had just stepped forward when his body retreated. The power contained in Ziqin's attack surprised him. As far as he knew, the reason why Ogiest was defeated was only because he was weak. Ziqin tapped his foot, and the power in his body erupted. The ground exploded, and he used the recoil to soar into the air. He took the initiative to attack Hubert. It had to be said that it was all because of Hubert that he could reach this point. This person's combat strength was not very good, but he was very scheming. Therefore, he had to die. Hubert clenched his fists and stretched out his arms to block. With another explosion of energy, Hubert was sent flying. Then Ziqin attacked again. The blood in his body circulated quickly. His heart provided a lot of energy for this battle. Puff! The staff fell for the 3rd time. Hubert coughed out blood and was sent flying. There was a hint of shock in his eyes. The crowd in the distance was also in an uproar. They were very surprised. However, no one made a move. Everyone just stood there and watched. Of course, it wasn't because they had to abide by some kind of rule of one-on-one combat. It was because if one of them died, there would be one less competitor for the treasure. Marcus was extremely shocked. He did not expect Ziqin to be so powerful and terrifying. Ziqin closed in step by step, and before he knew it, he was already far away from the cave. Beside him, Ogiest's face was gloomy. He had yet to recover from his injuries. Seeing this scene, he had some thoughts in his heart. In the next moment, he quickly rushed forward, intending to join forces with Apebert. "Scram!" Ziqin shouted loudly, smashing the bone stick in his hand towards Ogiest. Bang! Ogiest was sent flying again, spurting out another mouthful of blood. He had a feeling that Ziqin was stronger than before. Right now, Ziqin also had a feeling that he was becoming more and more powerful. He even had a strong illusion that he could break through today. He had advanced from the 5 forces state to the 6 forces state. Therefore, he gradually distanced himself from the cave entrance because he wanted to give it a try. When Ogiest went forward and was defeated, it showed a fact to everyone, and that was to join forces. There was no doubt that he had made a good start. However, the others did not seem to appreciate it and were still watching. In other words, they were waiting for Zichen to kill Ape Bert first before making a move. Zichen displayed a powerful killing power. Ape Bert was gradually losing. He repeatedly spurted out blood and shouted, "Everyone, I've already lured him over. Why don't you make a move?" There was some hidden meaning in his words. If everyone joined forces, they would naturally be able to kill Zichen. On the other hand, if they did not make a move at this moment, Zichen would definitely retreat, and Ape Bert would be able to survive. He wanted to snatch the treasure, but he was definitely not a desperado. In any case, he still had a certain status in Pofa City. There was no need for him to lose his life here for worldly possessions. Everyone present was a shrewd person and could naturally tell what Ape Bert was trying to say. Therefore, they didn't wait any longer and walked forward. However, it was not very likely that everyone would swarm up and instantly kill Zichen. After all, they had not yet decided who to join forces with. After all, there were only a few treasures, while there were many people. As such, the 6 Powers Realm cultivators all walked out. At the same time, the others behind them could see that a decisive battle was about to break out, so they once again retreated and distanced themselves from the battlefield. However, in the next moment, only 2 people truly walked out and charged toward Zichen. The 3 of them joined forces. Ape Bert was injured and was mainly supporting. Boom! Powerful energy surged out. Facing 3 6 Powers Realm cultivators, Zichen did not fear them at all. Under the powerful shock waves, Zichen's bone staff descended and knocked back one of the 6 Powers Realm cultivators. Whoa! At that moment, another 6 Powers Realm cultivator attacked, and a strange energy fell on Zichen's body. Zichen's body once again became like a piece of paper and started to violently distort, as if he could disappear at any moment. At that moment, a surge of energy surged out from his heart and changed the situation, allowing him to completely recover. Therefore, Zichen turned around and smashed his bone staff to the side. Boom! The energy sputtered, and the 6 Powers Realm cultivator was also sent flying. Die! Zichen continued to charge towards Ape Bert. If he could kill one person today, he hoped that it would be Ape Bert. Ape Bert seemed to have noticed this, so he intentionally lured Zichen out. It had to be said that he dared to do this even though he was injured, which was undoubtedly equivalent to pulling chestnuts out of the fire. After being carelessly hit, Ape Bert had almost lost half of his life here. He did not dare to be careless anymore and immediately retreated into the distance. This time, he did not go forward no matter what. As for the previous 2 people, because they had lost Ape Bert's support, Zichen seized the opportunity to forcefully block an attack and injure one of them. While the other party retreated, he attacked the last person with all his strength. 1 against 3, and he was completely suppressing them. When everyone saw this scene, they were shocked and had strange expressions on their faces. It was obvious that Zichen's body was also strange. When he encountered the true force attack earlier, it was clearly about to disappear. Why did it block it again? Just as they were shocked, Zichen planned to retreat, because the power of the heartbeat was weakening, which proved that his guess was wrong. This time he would not break through because of this. The most likely possibility was that the anger from before had triggered the resonance of the heart. Therefore, sensing that something was wrong, Zichen turned around and ran. Seeing this, the others panicked and rushed forward. Unfortunately, they were already some distance away from Zichen. It was obviously too late to chase now. Under everyone's unwilling gaze, Zichen successfully ran into the mine. Chapter 5088. After feeling the lack of energy in his body, Zichen ran into the mine. Next, the battle would be held here. The battle to the death would also take place here, including Ape Bert The three injured Six Powers Realm cultivators all had fear in their eyes. Zi Chen's combat power was too strong. Marcus's emotions fluctuated greatly. This was because Zi Chen's combat power was too strong. What was wrong with having such a person by his side? He could not understand Ape Bert's actions. The others watched this scene indifferently from the side, especially the spellbreakers. They could not help but mock them. They're too stupid. So many of them can't beat one person. Exactly. They're complete idiots. Zi Chen is really unlucky to be targeted by such idiots. Of course, they were not speaking up for Zi Chen, but to ridicule the spellbreakers. To them, perhaps the greatest joy in life was bullying spirit spellcasters. They did not fight back when beaten or scolded. Of course, Zi Chen was an exception, and this exception was about to be killed by them soon. I say, you're not afraid, are you? Phoebe sneered at the Six Powers Realm cultivators. A group of people can't beat one person. Are you really trash? One of the Six Powers Realm cultivators finally could not hold it in and said unhappily, "Then why don't I see you fight?" Phoebe laughed and said, "Because we like to be open and above board, unlike you who like to play dirty. Go and ask Zichin. Although we failed a few times, we were open and above board. Unlike you, each and every one of you is incomparably shady. You deserve to be suppressed by us." Although the Six Powers Realm cultivator was angry, he did not dare to say anything. The others were the same. Everyone looked at the mine with an ugly expression. Spicer said, "Zi Chen's situation is somewhat abnormal. His previous strength was more like some kind of strange spell, but there should be a time limit. His sudden entry into the mine should mean that the spell has disappeared." This speculation caused many voices to echo. Zi Chen's strength was too ridiculous. Even many of the 6 realms of strength could not fight against 3 of them at once. "Go in and kill him," Ape Bert said, "but that brat is very cunning. We can work in pairs." His words successfully attracted a wave of mockery. However, Ape Bert didn't care at all. He treated them as if they didn't exist. It was almost impossible for him to gain an advantage over these lawbreakers. These people seemed to be at odds with each other and fought for themselves. However, once they were provoked, they would unite. As for spirit spell casters like them, they seemed to be united. However, when there were benefits and troubles, they would split up. The others also nodded. They could still accept the suggestion of 2 people in a group. Thus, everyone made their own arrangements and walked towards the mine. Watching them leave, Phoebe asked, "How do you know about Zi Chen's situation?" Spicer shook his head and said, "I don't know either. I just guessed." Butterball Kant asked, "What if I'm wrong?" Spike laughed. "Then I'm not the one who died?" When the other lawbreakers heard this, they all laughed out loud. The spirit spell casters looked at each other at the side. Perhaps only Zi-Chin could deal with these arrogant fellows. Unfortunately, Zi-Chun was going to die now. Zi-Chin entered the mine and began to go deeper. He was really familiar with this place. He came to the place with the kill crystals. After arriving here, he looked around and found that there were many more kill crystals. Thus, he used the slaughter spirit to clear out an empty area, until he found the large piece of kill crystal. He first cupped his fists at the kill crystal and apologized. If he could successfully avoid this calamity this time, he naturally wouldn't disturb the indulgence of these existences. However, if he couldn't, he had no other choice. This time he might die. However, before he died, he had to drag some existences down with him so that they wouldn't have schemed against him in vain. Zi-Chan walked forward and came to the edge of the cave entrance. He hid here. He believed that those 6 realms would definitely come. Holding the bone staff tightly, Zi-Chen's eyes flashed with killing intent. Someone was coming. This kid is really good at hiding. Don't make any noise. Be careful. That kid is strange. 2 6 realms were walking towards him. Zi-Chen held his breath and the bone staff in his hand also fell silent. Step by step, the other party was coming. Buzz! The moment the two of them appeared, Zi-Chen's weapon smashed down fiercely with a large amount of light. The other party was shocked and immediately blocked. Bang! A strong shock wave. One of them was sent flying by Zi-Chen. This kid is here. The other Six Forces realm cultivator let out a cry of surprise before charging towards Zi-Chen. In Zi-Chen's hand, the bone staff moved again and smashed down on the other party's head. This place wasn't big, but it was enough for Zi-Chen to use the bone staff. Infinite light shone. In this dark cave, Zi-Chen's eyes were shining, looking very strange. Bang! The second Six Realms was also sent flying. Then the slaughter spirit moved and turned into a stream of light, completely catching the other party off guard. Puff! It pierced through a person's head and then quickly left. Die! Zi-Chen quickly moved forward and didn't give the other party time to react. The bone staff smashed down again. The energy was stimulated by the bone staff, causing Zi-Chen's attack to have the strength of a Six Realms cultivator. Boom! A strong shock wave and a terrifying aura circulated. The Six Realms cultivator was sent flying again. The slaughter spirit followed closely behind. This time, Zi-Chen didn't hold back and used all kinds of methods. Puff! Another person was hit. A second hole appeared on the other party's head. Naturally, the injury was very serious. Zi-Chen continued to move forward. It was still the same person. During this time, the other Six Realms cultivator attacked, but it was blocked by Zi-Chen. After the third attack, the slaughter spirit attacked. The Six Realms cultivator screamed and then fell down dead. Because he already possessed true power, his death left behind a real corpse in this world. When the other Six Realms cultivator saw this, he immediately shouted, "You're courting death!" Then he used all his strength and looked like he was going to fight to the death with Zi-Chen. However, when Zi-Chen swung the bone staff, the other party used the force to retreat and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Zi-Chen was stunned. He looked at the corpse on the ground and immediately chased after it. He was very familiar with this place. However, he neglected the strong desire to live of a Six Realms cultivator. As the other party ran, he shouted that Zi-Chen was here. He didn't beg for mercy. Instead, he shouted to attract more people. When Zi-Chen saw this, he could only retreat and walk in another direction. He hid and continued to wait for the ambush. The Six Realms cultivator ran out. His shout shocked everyone and caused an uproar. Chapter 5089. Hearing this news, everyone was in disbelief. How powerful were the Six Forces state cultivators? How could they be killed just like that? However, they quickly thought of the injured Six Forces state cultivators. If the two sides really wanted to fight one-on-one, Zi-Chen could really kill them. Now, it was true. Ape Bert, who was a little worried that he would miss the opportunity to heal his injuries, couldn't help but change his expression when he heard the news. He secretly rejoiced. If he went in, that wolf cub would definitely kill him. Fortunately, it wasn't him. Hearing the commotion, the other Six Forces state cultivators also rushed out of the cave. During this time, Zi-Chen seized the opportunity and killed another one. This time, everyone panicked. After walking out, they still had lingering fears. It was too dangerous. The three of us will work together. Ape Bert's injuries were almost completely healed. He said, "This way, if we work together, we can at least save our lives." Yes, they could save their lives. This was the current consensus of everyone. They didn't want to kill Zi-Chen for the time being, and it was obviously impossible for them to leave just like that. This time it was no longer just a matter of the supreme treasure. Once they retreated and Zi-Chen broke through to the Six Forces state, what awaited them would definitely be endless trouble. As expected, they were mocked and ridiculed by the spellbreakers in the distance. They could only kill their way into the mine in groups of 3 with dark faces. This time the effect was good. With the 3 of them working together, there were no more casualties. At the same time, they also dispelled the idea of being greedy. During this time, they repeatedly called out and called everyone over. Ziqin began to be forced to flee. As long as everyone worked together, he had no chance of winning. He laughed self-deprecatingly. Perhaps this was the power of unity. Damn it! Ziqin's face was gloomy as he walked into a mine. But soon he reached the end. When he turned around again, there was already someone at the entrance of the cave. Ziqin held the bone rod in his hand and smashed it forward. A large amount of light scattered, and the 6 Forces State cultivator who had just appeared at the entrance of the cave flew out. However, before Ziqin could rush forward, 2 more people stepped forward. Dazzling attacks appeared in his field of vision. Ziqin took a few steps back and stared at the 2 of them. Haha, it's done. It's finally done with this brat. One of the 6 Forces realm cultivators laughed out loud because Ziqin had nowhere to go. Rays of light flashed, and the 6 Forces State cultivators walked out from behind. In the blink of an eye, there were 4 groups of 12 people. When they saw the desperate Ziqin, a sinister smile immediately appeared on their faces. In such a small mine, they were confident that they could kill Ziqin. Ziqin looked at the crowd coldly. In the dark mine, his eyes were exceptionally bright. Brat, you have nowhere to run now, right? Hubert walked out of the darkness and stared coldly at Ziqin. Ziqin gripped the bone staff tightly. Everyone, let's not wait any longer. Let's attack together. Bert said. If we let him escape this time, I'm sure all of you know the consequences. Everyone's eyes turned cold. He naturally needed the supreme treasure, but the most important thing now was to take Ziqin's life. Everyone began to close in, and their auras approached. Ziqin smiled happily, but it was also cruel. In the end, there was a hint of madness in his smile. Everyone, let's die together! Boom! His 5 Forces State aura erupted, but it was obviously not enough in front of the 6 Forces State cultivators. In the next moment, the massacre spirit attacked. It flew to the stone walls on both sides like a stream of light. Puff! It completely sank into the wall and then quickly shuttled back and forth. Suddenly, the mine trembled as if it was about to collapse. Naive, do you think you can kill us like this? Bert said disdainfully. Even if this place completely collapses, it can't kill a 6 Forces State cultivator. Moreover, with your strength, you want to collapse a mountain? Dream on. The slaughter spirit flew out of the stone wall and headed to the other side. It also disappeared into the stone wall. The shaking continued, and gravel rustled down from above. Bert said impatiently, Everyone, let's do it now. The other 6 Forces State cultivators closed in again. Boom! At this moment, the killing intent on both sides completely erupted. Haha, you've triggered the killing crystal. Kid, you're still so naive. Do you really think that killing intent can do anything to us? Seeing this, a 6 Forces State cultivator laughed disdainfully. However, Bert's expression suddenly changed as if he had thought of something. He looked at Ziqin. Ziqin said, That's right. It's that place. In the boundless killing intent, an arm suddenly flew out. In an instant, the killing intent in the place became bone-chilling as if it was going to penetrate into the marrow. Everyone's expression changed when they saw that. The moment the arm appeared, the killing intent in the place seemed to have increased by a level. There's a foreign object in the killing crystal. Retreat! Someone exclaimed. At this moment, a strange phenomenon appeared. The hand seemed to have become a living thing and grabbed at the 6 Forces State cultivator in front of it. It grabbed the man's neck firmly. Ah, save me! The 6 Forces State cultivator shouted. Chi! Chi! However, on both sides, there was a constant wave of killing intent. accompanied by one broken object after another. There were corpses and broken weapons. It was as if someone had dug out a battlefield, and skulls were rolling around. The original mine was immediately filled with killing intent. Everyone felt as if they were in a place of thousand-year-old ice. The killing intent was bone-chilling and terrifying. Following that, strange phenomena appeared. An exotic beast that could fly flapped its wings and captured a six-forces state cultivator. There was also a huge creature that stomped at the six-forces state cultivator. A weapon flew into the air and cut the six-forces state cultivator's body open from the middle. Blood spurted out. Zi-Chin stood there with the killing spirit floating in front of him, blocking the killing intent. At first, he could still distinguish between illusion and illusion. Some were illusions and some were reality. However, in the end, more killing intent filled the place. The killing spirit began to tremble. Some of the killing intent penetrated its defenses and entered his body. Zi-Chin gradually lost himself. Boom! Boom! In the mine, rumbling sounds could be heard continuously. The killing intent was like a surging river. Everyone was lost in it. Endless killing intent entered their bodies and destroyed them. The killing spirit was born to devour killing intent. However, there was too much killing intent here. It had just swallowed a mutated beast when another mutated beast flew past it and entered Zi-Chen's body. Endless killing intent entered his body. Zi-Chen could not hold on any longer. His body swayed and fell. The killing intent continued to enter his body, destroying his life force. As if he was attacked by true power, his body became a piece of paper again. It began to twist violently, as if it would be torn apart at any time. Just as his body was about to collapse from the intense twisting, his heart let out a thumping sound. Chapter 5090. I've been away for a few days now. I can't rush out the manuscript today. Tomorrow I'll rest for a day and save up 2 new chapters. The day after tomorrow I'll have to take the bus for a whole day, so I won't have time to write. If everything goes as planned, I'll update on the 27th. Thunder Marshall has taken 3 days off. It's currently in progress. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5091. Thump. Zi-Chen's heart was beating like a drum, strong and powerful. The murderous illusions in the surroundings were completely still. Zi-Chen was lying on the ground, his body twisted and motionless. Thump. The heart beat again, strong and powerful. The still space trembled and returned to normal. However, this time, the murderous intent was no longer wreaking havoc in the surroundings. Instead, it was directed at Zi-Chen. This time it was not active but passive. Zi-Chen's heart seemed to have turned into a whirlpool, using Zi-Chen's paper figure as a medium to devour the surrounding murderous intent. All of the murderous intent, as well as the anomalies within, were absorbed by the black hole formed by the heart. Pa, pa, pa. Some crystals were still exploding, and the murderous intent within them was forcibly taken away. At this moment, the heart was like a terrifying predator. However, it was also because of this that those who had fainted were able to catch their breaths and were not killed by the murderous intent. Pa, pa. Previously, it was only at this cave entrance. However, as time passed, the other caves, including the ones that contained the murderous intent, were also cracking. There were also some who were in the other caves. They were in groups of 3 and were still looking for Zi-Chen. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed. They looked at the murderous intent that was surging out in surprise. However, the murderous intent did not wreak havoc after it appeared. It was as if it was being guided by some kind of energy and was calmly heading in a certain direction. In the pitch-black cave, there were occasional explosions. All of the murderous intent gathered in a certain direction in an orderly manner. The cave was filled with murderous intent, but it was dead silent. This strange scene caused everyone to feel apprehensive. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly emerged from the depths of the cave. There was some kind of consciousness in this aura. It was as if a powerful existence had woken up from a deep sleep. The 6 realms did not know what was happening. The sounds disappeared, and the murderous intent stopped exploding. The pressure in the cave became even more terrifying. The murderous intent that was gathering in an orderly manner also stopped at this moment. Then a second aura appeared. It came from a different place, and there seemed to be a consciousness in it as well. The 2 auras collided. Everyone felt their hearts sink. Their hearts became incomparably uncomfortable, as if they were being squeezed by a pair of strong hands, gradually suffocating them. Pooh! Someone coughed out blood, his expression horrified. The 2 different thoughts seemed to be communicating with each other, or perhaps they were examining each other and confronting each other. This confrontation didn't last for long before one of the wills retreated. Then the second thought faded away. The originally still killing intent continued to gather in front of him. However, no more killing crystals exploded along the way. It was as if the 2 auras had reached a consensus. These killing intents emerged from the various minds and eventually converged at Zi Chen's location, where they were completely absorbed by his heart. Dong! In the quiet mine, everyone was lying on the ground. He was motionless, and it was unclear whether he was dead or alive. Only his heart was beating, strong and powerful. Dong! When all the killing intent had been absorbed by the heart, a powerful energy was released from the heart. This energy converged into Zi Chen's body, as if it was pouring real flesh and blood into a paper person's body. Zi Chen's body began to expand. This expansion was just a manifestation of power, but it didn't make him look bloated. His body radiated light in all directions, giving people a feeling of power. The killing intent stopped attacking, and the 6 powers realm gradually woke up. They had comprehended the true power rules and had a strong vitality, so they wouldn't die easily. When they woke up, they saw Zi Chen lying there and his expanding body. Countless energy revolved around Zi Chen's body, releasing a powerful aura. No one knew what had happened, but looking at the situation ahead, it was obviously not something good. With so much energy surrounding one's body, even a pig could have a breakthrough. Everyone was very clear about what Zi Chen's breakthrough meant. Without looking at each other, a 6 powers realm immediately stepped forward. With a wave of his hand, an attack imbued with true power went straight for Zi Chen. Wang! As the attack approached, a real space appeared around Zi Chen, blocking the attack. The 6 powers realm was slightly startled and stepped forward to investigate. He touched Zi Chen's protection. They were separated by a ray of light, but it was as if they were in 2 different spaces. What are you looking at? Hurry up and do it! Ape Bert shouted angrily, stepped forward and punched forward. A fiery aura surged on his fist, and the power of true intent poured out. Boom! When his fist hit the light shield, an extremely strong rebounding force shook his body backward. Kill! Ape Bert's eyes shone with a cold light. He stepped forward again and punched. Boundless true power surged like a huge wave, trying to drown Zi Chen. But it was useless. The protection space didn't budge. After a few punches, Ape Bert looked at the intact space and became anxious. What are you all waiting for? I didn't see that he was about to break through. It would have been better if he hadn't said that. As soon as he said that, the 6 powers realm cultivators wanted to retreat. Seeing this, Ape Bert was amused. Are you all a bunch of idiots? How did you reach the 6 powers realm? Once Zi Chen breaks through, do you think he will only kill me and let you go? Stop dreaming. We are the ones who forced him to this point. When the time comes, every single one of you will be counted as one. No one will be able to escape. Looking at the hesitant crowd, his eyes flashed with a cold light. Now you only have one choice. Follow me and kill him. Otherwise, everyone will die. Everyone's expressions changed. This situation was beyond their expectations. At the moment, they were in a dilemma. Damn it, don't just stand there. It's not too late to kill now. Otherwise, everything will be too late. 8-Bert was really anxious because once Zi-Chen broke through, he would definitely be the first to kill. Therefore, he couldn't be bothered with the crowd and charged forward with all his strength. Buzz! At this moment, a stream of light suddenly appeared and pierced 8-Bert's head with a poof. 8-Bert stood there in a daze. There were still remnants of true power on his fist. His head began to bleed. This time, it was no longer a superficial wound. The blood that flowed out was accompanied by vitality. Just one blow took away half of his life. Swish! The light flashed again. It was the slaughter spirit. This time, it carried a terrifying lethality. 8-Bert did not react. A second bloody hole appeared on his head. The true power on his fist completely dissipated. The true power energy in his body also disappeared. He knelt straight on the ground. His life was about to come to an end. Swish! The light was still dancing. It was no longer a pure slaughter spirit. It already contained power. It's soul power. This is soul power. Seeing this, a 6 powers realm cultivator exclaimed, "He has soul power." Chapter 5092. Zi-Chen was still lying on the ground, motionless. The protective space had not been broken, but the slaughter spirit contained another kind of energy. Everyone was very familiar with this energy. It was the soul power of the lawbreaker, mysterious and powerful. For many years, the lawbreakers, as the natives of this place, used the laws of Broken Law City and their own soul power to suppress the spirit spellcasters, causing them to always lower their heads. Therefore, they were very familiar with this power. Seeing it now, they were shocked and terrified. If this power came from Zi-Chen, then Zi-Chen was no longer a pure lawbreaker. Spirit spellcaster and soul power were the same body. This was an even stronger soul destroyer. Everyone was shocked. 8-Bert, who was already kneeling on the ground and did not have much life left, was filled with regret after hearing these exclamations. He finally knew the reason for all of this. Perhaps the soul power treasure did not exist. The reason why Zi-Chen was able to block the lawbreaker's attack was because he also had soul power in his body, but it had not awakened. It had to be said that before he died, 8-Bert had infinitely guessed the truth. Unfortunately, it was all too late. 8-Bert's heart was filled with regret and unwillingness. Originally, he had his own mansion and also had many subordinates. Although life was boring, his life was not in danger. But now he even lost his life. Sure enough, the first person Zi-Chen wanted to kill was him. Unfortunately, there was no regret to speak of. When he fell, he faintly saw Zi-Chen move. How should everyone deal with the awakened shadow destroyer? Unfortunately, this was not a problem that 8-Bert should consider. Zi-Chen did move. He woke up from his coma. His body was filled with powerful energy, as if it would never be exhausted, endlessly growing and multiplying. His heart was beating strongly and energy was constantly gushing out from his heart, converging in all parts of his body. However, he had not broken through yet, because he still lacked a trace of comprehension of the laws. Only by comprehending could he reach the 6 forces realm. However, he now had the foundation to resist the 6 forces realm. That was soul power. After falling unconscious, his consciousness seemed to have become stronger again. A portion of the soul power that was originally in his mind and could not be mobilized had already become controllable. He glanced at the fallen Albert, then glanced at the floating slaughter spirit beside him. He seemed to have guessed something. Looking ahead, all the Six Powers realm cultivators were looking at him in fear. Between them, there was a guardian. Chen had already awakened, but the guardian had not disappeared. Buzz! Chen activated his soul power. He activated the slaughter spirit with his soul power. Boundless killing intent burst out from the slaughter spirit as it flew forward. At such a close distance, a Six Forces state cultivator only had time to raise his hand before his head was pierced through. It was too fast. There was no way to react. This was also the greatest advantage that spellbreakers had over spirit spellcasters. Chen, on the other hand, had a rare item like the slaughter spirit, so his attack power was even stronger. It could be said that in the past, Chen had controlled the spirit of slaughter by relying on the connection between the two parties. This time, however, he was using his true soul power. It was like spending real gold and platinum, and the effect was naturally obvious. The Six Realms cultivator screamed in pain. He felt as if his soul was about to collapse. Pooh! The light flashed again, and the slaughter spirit walked back and forth. The Six Realms cultivator's body fell backward. When the others saw this, there was a hint of fear on their faces. The killing intent around them immediately dissipated, and they ran to the back. At this moment, everyone was terrified. Chen glanced at the two dead people. While taking their gains, he chased after them. In the mine, there were mournful screams one after another. The Six Realms cultivators died one after another. The others were waiting outside, including those Six Realms spellbreakers. During this time, someone sent a message back saying that they had found Chen and were about to surround him. If nothing unexpected happened, Chen would definitely die. Therefore, everyone was waiting for the news of Chen's death. As long as Chen died, the real battle for the treasure would break out. During this time, the entire mine seemed to tremble without warning. Everyone's heart tightened, but the abnormality quickly disappeared. No one paid much attention to it and waited quietly. In the end, they saw the Six Realms cultivators running out in fear. As they ran, they shouted for the Soul Destroyer. Everyone was puzzled and did not understand what had happened. At this moment, two bloody holes suddenly appeared on the head of a terrified Six Realms cultivator, and his body fell straight to the ground. A person appeared behind him. It was Chen. Run! The Six Realms cultivators ran frantically with only fear in their eyes. Along the way, their companions had already fallen and died. Chen was like the Grim Reaper, who reaped lives. He followed behind them and took one life after another. Some of them still had some sense. They soared into the sky and ran into the distance. Some had already forgotten their flying skills and ran straight for the crowd. The slaughter spirit followed closely behind. With two thuds, a Six Realms cultivator fell. This time the people behind saw it clearly. He also finally understood what those exclamations meant. Shadow Destroyer. Those who had spiritual techniques and soul power were extremely rare, and their status was even more noble. Seeing Chen's killing methods, the crowd was in an uproar. Everyone was stunned. Shadow Destroyer? How can it be a Shadow Destroyer? Phoebe exclaimed, his face full of disbelief. Doesn't he only have a soul power treasure? Why does he have the soul power of a spellbreaker? Butterball and Kant also found it unbelievable. Exclamations rose and fell all around. No one believed that all of this was real, but the Six Realms cultivators had used their lives to verify it. It could not be fake. Looking at the real corpses on the ground, everyone was shocked. All the spiritual casters in the Six Forces realm had run away. To them, staying here was a dead end. Those who could not escape had also become corpses. Chen chased for a while and stopped. After all, there were too many people running around. He could not catch up to many. The crowd had already dispersed. Everyone looked at Chen in shock. At this moment, they saw the birth of a Shadow Destroyer. Not to mention the spirit casters Even the spellbreakers had a look of disbelief on their faces. It seems that the Black Stormback then was not a soul power treasure, but his own soul. Spicer's expression changed. It's just that he had not awakened then. Now he has. Obviously, he had guessed wrong. But because of this, he had harmed many people. At the very least, 8-Bert and the others had targeted Zichin because of that soul power treasure. In the end, they had lost their lives for nothing and did not obtain anything. At this moment, Zichen's gaze swept toward Spicer. The spirit casters of the Six Forces realm had all run away. The only person who had an absolute grudge against Zichin was Spike. Both sides faced each other. It was hard to say whether they would live or die. Looking at Zichen's meaningful expression, Spicer's expression changed. Then he turned and left. He flew into the air. Without knowing what was going on with Zichin, he clearly did not dare to go against him. Spicer flew into the air and ran away. But Phoebe and the others could not do this. They had an even greater grudge against Zichin. Zichin walked forward. "Run!" Phoebe shouted and turned to run. Chapter 5093. Phoebe and the others ran away as fast as they could because they would lose their lives if they did not run. Their feud with Zichin had long reached a point where they would not rest until one of them died. Along the way, there was no lack of mockery. D****, how did he become a shadow destroyer? They could not figure it out. Lu Yao had fled early in the morning. Zichen's strength had long exceeded his understanding. Zichin moved forward and chased after the enemy. "Butterball, run! What are you waiting for?" Phoebe and the others were running away. When they turned their heads and saw that Kant was still standing there foolishly, they all shouted. Obviously, they did not dare to stop and could only shout as they ran. After a moment of hesitation, Butterball and Kant stretched out their arms and stopped Zichin. "Stop!" Zichin looked at Kant. "Can you let them go? I'll give you martial crystals." Kant immediately took out a piece of martial crystals. "Although I only have one now, I'll be able to get the other 5 soon in exchange for their lives." They had no choice but to do so, because in this situation, none of the people present had the ability to fight against Zichin. Run. If Zichin was determined to kill, there was nowhere to run. Therefore, he could only think of this method. Zichin stopped and glanced at Kant. Of course, Zichin had nothing to say to Butterball. The other party's actions that day could be considered as timely help. He stepped forward and patted the other party's shoulder. "I've said it before. Among all of you, you're the one who can live the longest. Follow me from now on." When Zichin said this in the past, it was a great humiliation to all the spellbreakers. However, it was undoubtedly an honor to say it today, because Zichin was no longer who he used to be. He had become a shadow destroyer. This should be the noblest existence in Spellbreaker City. Those so-called rules were a complete joke in front of him. Among the crowd, Marcus was extremely excited. During Zichin's most difficult time, who still believed in Zichin and was willing to help him. Other than Butterball, it was Marcus. The crowd had not left yet, but they had dispersed far away. To the people present, the Shadow Destroyer seemed to be a legendary existence. Now that he was able to see it with his own eyes, it was truly shocking. Zichin turned around and glanced at the mineral vein. This was really a blessed land. Ever since he came here, he had resolved many crises. If he left this time, he might never return. He walked to the entrance of the cave and clasped his fist towards the killing crystal mine. The others in the distance were puzzled, but they were only puzzled. No one dared to ask. After that, the crowd dispersed. Everyone had left. This included Marcus as well. Zichin was already a shadow destroyer. His status was even higher than spellbreakers of the same level. Once he returned, no one would be able to use rules to suppress him. Butterball and Kant were still there. It wasn't that he didn't want to leave, but he didn't dare to, because Zichin hadn't said anything. Zichen approached and glanced at him. "Let's go too." Butterball followed behind Zichen, his heart filled with emotions. It was dark. Zichen decided to stop and rest. Butterball went nearby to get firewood. Zichen sat cross-legged and felt his body. His body was full of energy, but he hadn't broken through. He was still at the 5 strengths realm. The bonfire rose, illuminating the surroundings. The others had probably left in the dark. As far as they could see, they were the only bonfire. There were spell-breaker beasts around at night, but they obviously didn't dare to come close. Whether it was Zichen or Kant, their auras had a deterrent effect on the spell-breaker beasts. The sky brightened. Zichen got up, and the two continued on their way. A few days later, they returned to their original encampment. Miao Pengfei and Hu Zhang received the news and immediately ran out. After Zichen left, the two were very worried. After all, many people had chased after him. Among them, the lowest realm was at the 4 strengths realm. But when they saw those people fleeing into the city in a sorry state a few days ago, the two heaved a sigh of relief. Zichen stayed here for a day. Butterball and Kant watched as Zichen chatted and laughed with the 2 weak 3 strengths realm cultivators. Then, the two entered Spellbreaker City. When Zichen appeared, he saw many people. These people looked at the two of them curiously. Of course, they were mainly looking at Zichen. Not long after, 2 people appeared in front of them. Zichen had never seen the 2 of them before, but he could guess the identity of one of them, Eden. Back then, Hubert always mentioned this name. Last time, in order to ask for something on him, he even used this name to pressure him. As expected, the tall man said with a smile, "You are Zichen. You are right. I am Eden. Eden, 7 strengths realm, spirit caster. The other person should be the spellbreaker." He looked at Zichen and said, "I am Bosch." Eden continued, "Zichen, I heard about what happened to you. I didn't expect Hubert to do such a stupid thing. Fortunately, you killed him. Otherwise, I would definitely punish him severely. How dare he play tricks under my nose? He is simply courting death." Eden chuckled and said, "But it's good. Hubert is dead, so his mansion is empty. You can go there and take his place." Compared to Eden, Bosch was much more direct. "Come with me. We will protect you from now on." Only then did Kant realize that the 2 of them were here to rope in Zichen. Thinking about it, since such a shadow destroyer had appeared, they naturally had to rope him in. Kant, who understood, felt that something was wrong. Why were there only 2 of them? Where were the others? One had to know that in Spellbreaker City there were many 7 strengths realm cultivators. Why didn't they come? Or was it some kind of tacit agreement? Zichen cupped his fists at the 2 of them and said, "Zichen appreciates the good intentions of the 2 lords. But after Zichen entered the city, I have already gotten used to my own residence. I don't plan on moving for the time being." That's good, that's good." Eden did not insist. He nodded and said, "The Yuan Mansion is open to you at any time. You can go whenever you want." Bosch also nodded at Zichen. Then, the 2 7 strengths realm cultivators left just like that. This made Khan a little confused. It was that simple. Not saying more. Wasn't this kind of recruitment a little too insincere? Zichen did not think much of it. Before he came, he had already asked Kant what he did on a daily basis. Kant told him that spellbreakers like them had almost no rules. If there were no special circumstances, no one would care about them. They could do whatever they wanted. Now that Zichen had become a shadow destroyer, he naturally received the same treatment. If Zichen wanted to, he could stay in his room for a few years without coming out. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had energy. Spellbreaker City was not responsible for distributing energy to them for free. Zichen returned to his residence, which was still next door to Marcos. He informed Kant that he would come over early the next morning. He was going out to hunt. This time, Zichan wanted to hunt a 6 strengths realm spellbreaker beast. Chapter 5094. Chen returned to his residence and saw that Marcus's door was closed. He did not know where he went. Walking into the room, he began to count his spoils. This time he killed several 6 powers realm cultivators. They all had storage items. Chen opened them one by one and saw pure energy and spiritual energy. Other than that, there were also a few martial crystals. As for martial crystals, there was none. Next, he began to count the pure energy and spiritual energy. He had to admit that this way of obtaining them was faster. During this time, he also found a few special materials. He did not know what they were for, so Chen kept them. The next morning, Butterball and Kant arrived on time. The two of them walked out of the city. This time, they were obviously going in a different direction. Along the way, when people saw Chen, their expressions were filled with respect. Although Zichan was still in the 5 powers realm, his battle strength was no weaker than that of the 6 powers realm. Looking at the silent Butterball, Zichan asked, "What, you're not happy?" Butterball and Kant looked at Zichan, wanting to say something, but stopped. Zichan smiled and said, "Did those fellows talk about you again? You didn't tell them that you saved their lives?" Butterball and Kant shook their heads. "Not that." Chen asked curiously, "Then what is it?" Butterball did not answer immediately. After a slight hesitation, he asked, "Do you know why only 2 people came to recruit you yesterday?" Chen laughed. "What's the difference?" "According to my estimation, there should be a lot." Butterball said, "In this shattering law city, there are many big and small factions. They fight with each other for resources, experts, and anything else that can be fought over." Looking at Chen's expression, Kant continued, "But yesterday only 2 people came. Don't you think it's strange?" Chen smiled. "This should have nothing to do with me killing people, right?" Chen had killed quite a number of 6 powers realm cultivators outside, so he did not hold back at all. Because of this, he offended the other 7 forces realm cultivators. As far as Chen knew, this should be impossible. Butterball said, "That's not the reason. The main thing is you will never be able to reach the 6 forces state in the future." "What?" Chen looked at Butterball with a strange expression. Right now, he was only 1 step away from the 6 forces state. He could even feel that his body was filled with energy, and he was just short of comprehending the law. It's been a long time since a shadow destroyer appeared in Pofa City. Kant said, "Most of the shadow destroyers only exist in legends. But when I went back yesterday, Phoebe and the others told me that your condition is abnormal. It's an accidental awakening." He carefully looked at Chen. "In this kind of situation, if you suddenly have spirit power and spiritual magic power, then you will have no hope of breaking through in this lifetime." Of course, Zichan did not agree with this point of view. However, he did not argue with Butterball. They concluded that you have no chance of reaching the 6 forces state, so they lost interest in you. No matter how strong a 5 forces state cultivator was, he was still a 5 forces state cultivator. The 2 left Pofa City and walked into the distance. Along the way, they met some people. When they saw the 2 of them, their faces would reveal strange expressions. It was rare to see a spell breaker and a spiritual magic cultivator walking together. But after someone explained, they all came to a sudden realization, and the way they looked at Chen changed. The 2 of them did not meet anyone else. In Butterball's words, very few people walked this path because it was only available to those in the 6 forces state. People like Lu Yao, who could come here at the 5 forces state, were few and far between. And he relied on his weapon and armor. Although he followed the 6 forces state cultivators, he only played a supporting role. But ever since Lu Yao lost his weapon and armor, he lost the right to come here. Even spell breakers in the 5 forces state did not dare to come here casually. The two of them walked for more than 10 miles and met another team of 5. Cunt! Someone in the team recognized Butterball and immediately called out. It was Spicer. This spellbreaker in the Six Forces state had attacked Z-Chin back then because of his wrong guess, which led to the massacre outside the mine. Butterball glanced at Z-Chin. Z-Chin nodded slightly. Kant jogged forward. Z-Chin scanned the area in front of him. Among the 5 people, there were 4 spellbreakers and 1 spiritual magic cultivator. This caused Z-Chin to be somewhat surprised. After hearing Spicer's explanation, the other party also looked at Z-Chin in surprise. After a while, Butterball walked over with Spicer following behind. He looked at Z-Chin and said, Z-Chin, you can come with us and let Kant go back. Z-Chin shook his head. I don't trust you. Spicer's eyes turned cold. Z-Chin said again, and once I suspect you, I might kill you. Spicer's expression changed. Don't kill him. Kant is a little stupid, but he's not a bad person. After saying that, Spicer turned and left. Obviously, he was really worried that Z-Chin would kill them. Both parties parted ways and did not walk the same path. If we continue walking forward, we will reach the Six Forces state spell breaker beasts. Kong pointed to the front, where there was a mountain range. The so-called Six Forces state lawbreaker beast was in the mountain range. Here, wherever there are mountains, there will be or veins. It's the same here. But because there are too many Six Forces state spell breaker beasts and their numbers are too strong, no one dares to mine here. As they walked forward, Kant introduced the situation here to Z-Chin. It was said that a long time ago a spellbreaker faction found a precious or vein, but before they could mine it, they lost several Six Forces state spellbreakers. So they could only find other factions to join forces and annihilate the spellbreaker beasts here. Under the leadership of the Seven Forces state spellbreaker beasts, they killed a group of spellbreaker beasts. But just a few days later, a second group of spellbreaker beasts came and killed everyone who was stationed here. After that, no other faction came to mine here. In the end, Kant said, if you're lucky, you can dig up some treasures here, such as martial crystals. Of course, for 5 Forces state spellbreakers, martial crystals were still good stuff. But those who could come here were mostly Six Forces state spellbreakers. They did not come here to dig up a few martial crystals. The 2 of them walked into the mountains. Kong's voice was noticeably softer, while Z-Chen's gaze swept the surroundings warily. He had never seen a Six Forces state spellbreaker beast. After walking for a few miles, Kant felt the pressure. His face turned pale. A bone stick appeared in Z-Chen's hand. He also felt a lot of pressure. After another kilometer, when the 2 of them were walking past a huge rock, a strange beast suddenly swooped down from above. It had a strange appearance. Its long teeth were like swords. It charged at Kant. Back off. As soon as Z-Chin said that, Kant immediately retreated. He held the bone stick tightly in his hand and smashed it forward. Buzz! Infinite power was injected into it. The bone stick began to vibrate, releasing a powerful aura. Bang! Chapter 5095. Z-Chan had never seen a law-breaking beast in the Six Forces state, so it should not be weak. Therefore, he did not hold back in his first attack. With one strike, the law-breaking beast flew backward. After landing, its head seemed to be in a daze. Z-Chan quickly went forward and struck again with the bone staff. This time he used all his strength. While the beast was shaking its head, he struck again with the staff. The law-breaking beast howled and fell to the ground. Z-Chan followed in a flash. This time he did not strike with the staff. Instead, he struck with his left palm. Light swirled around his palm. The light crisscrossed. It was an attack that he had comprehended. When it landed on the law-breaking beast, its skin was instantly cut open. But it was only a superficial wound. Z-Chen quickly retreated. Then the slaughter spirit quickly went forward and sank into the law-breaking beast's head. Blood splattered. The howl turned into a scream. Ever since he had soul power, the slaughter spirit's power had become extraordinarily strong. Butterball and Kant looked ahead. Their eyes almost popped out. They watched as Zi-Chin stepped forward and finished off the battle in a few moves. That relaxed expression of his was almost unbelievable. The law-breaking beast, in the six forces state, fell to the ground, motionless. Blood kept flowing out of its 7 orifices. Zi-Chin held the bone staff and stood to the side. His face was slightly pale. He said, "It's indeed harder to kill than the six forces state." Just harder to kill? If other six forces state people heard this, they would probably want to die. When they went out, they would at least be in a team of 5, and they must be accompanied by a spiritual caster. The main thing was that they could resist. 5 people ganging up on a law-breaking beast. Even so, accidents sometimes happened. What are you waiting for? Come and take care of it. Zi-Chin looked at Butterball and said, "Do you want me to do it?" Butterball trotted over. Then he took out a long knife and began to cut the law-breaking beast. Even if it was dead, the law-breaking beast still had a body. It had amazing defense. Butterball could only use his power and began to carefully break it down. Let's break a leg first and have a taste. After being here for so long, Zi-Chin had not eaten anything other than refining energy. Although he didn't need to eat at all, he still felt a little hungry. Kant nodded repeatedly. In this Shatter FA city, everything else was fine except for food, which was ridiculously expensive. Even he, a spellbreaker, had only eaten it once. It was only after Spicer had advanced to the Six Forces state that he invited them to eat there. After that, Butterball never went there again. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he felt that it wasn't worth it. Even the spellbreaker felt that it was not worth it. Why don't we walk outside? Butterball looked around. He was a little worried. After all, there were only 2 of them. He still couldn't fight. Zi-Chin could deal with 1 Six Forces realm spellbreaker, but what if there were 2? All right. The 2 walked to the border again. Along the way, Butterball had already picked up firewood. Although there was no seasoning, looking at the golden barbecue, the 2 still ate heartily. Butterball felt like he was about to bite his tongue off. It was too satisfying. Compared to the small plate in the restaurant, this was simply extravagant. At this moment, Butterball felt that following Zi-Chin was not bad. After eating, the 2 continued to go deeper and hunted another law-breaking beast. Something that required a team to complete was done by Zi-Chin alone. It had to be said that Zi-Chin was powerful and terrifying. After that, they didn't find anything else. Looking at the sky, Butterball suggested that they go back first. It was said that it was not safe to stay here at night. Even those teams with many people didn't dare to stay here for the night. Since they had found something today, the 2 began to return. When the sky was completely dark, the 2 returned to the city. One of them would be exchanged for resources by Butterball tomorrow. As for the other one, Butterball dissected it into several pieces. The 2 of them divided the loot on the spot. After returning, Zi-Chin went to look for Marcus. Marcus was very surprised by Zi-Chin's appearance and was also a little excited. "I heard that you went out hunting today. How was it? Was a Six Forces realm law breaking beast very difficult to deal with?" Marcus said with a smile. Zi-Chin was very grateful to Marcus. He treated him well. Zi-Chin nodded and said not bad. It was an eye-opener. Hearing Zi-Chin's words, Marcus thought that Zi-Chin had not found anything. He immediately comforted him. "Don't worry. Wait until you get familiar with it. Then you will definitely find something." Zi-Chin smiled and then took out a portion of meat. He said, "I don't have anything good for you. Just consider it to satisfy your craving." Marcus looked at the beast meat that filled the entire table in disbelief. This was extremely precious, both the meat and the bones. By the time he reacted, Zi-Chin had already left. Marcus was very excited. It was not because of the beast meat that he had never seen before, but because even though Zi-Chin had become a shadow destroyer, he still recognized him. It was just that he was more or less restrained in front of Zi-Chin. On the same day, after Butterball returned, he immediately woke up his companions, after killing the first law-breaking beast. Other than eating one of its legs, the remaining parts were divided between the two of them. It was almost half for each of them. So when Butterball took out the other half, Phoebe and the others were stunned. Butterball smiled and said, "How was it? Not bad, right?" They looked at Butterball with envy in their eyes. This half of the beast's body was very valuable. They did not expect Zi-Chin to be so generous to him. Phoebe looked at the beast's body and said, "It's not bad, but I advise you to stay away from Zi-Chin in the future." "What's the matter?" Butterball asked in surprise. Phoebe did not answer. Instead, he asked, "You know his situation, right?" Butterball nodded and said, "I know. He can't break through anymore. But Zi-Chin, who's in the 5-strength realm, is comparable to a team in the 6-strength realm. Even if he can't break through, no one will dare to target him, right?" "You brat!" Phoebe reached out and hit Butterball hard on the head. "How long has it been? And you're already speaking up for him. Why? Do you really think you can do whatever you want just because you have a shadow destroyer?" "No way!" Butterball immediately shrunk his neck. "I'm telling the truth. Today, Spicer met Zi-Chin and invited him to join them. In the end, Zi-Chin said that he did not trust them. He said that if he got angry, he would kill them all. So Spicer left. I'm not talking about that." Phoebe said, "You know that Zi-Chin is very strong, and the others are not stupid. But why didn't they try to recruit him? They think that Zi-Chin can't break through and that he's not valuable." "Valuable my ass." Phoebe was so angry that he laughed. "In this place, it's all about using what you have. Who cares about value? I heard that there are people above who want to harm Zi-Chin." "Harm Zi-Chin? How is that possible?" Butterball could not believe it. Chapter 5096. Butterball, who had wanted to show off, became solemn after hearing Phoebe's words. "This is a secret, so you better be careful. Don't get implicated." Phoebe warned again, and the others followed suit. Butterball left the half of the beast carcass and turned to leave. He didn't seem to be in a good mood. After Butterball left, one of them said, "Phoebe, there's no need to scare him like that, right? If Kant gains something, it's a good thing for us, isn't it? At least for now. Zi-Chin trusts him and is willing to keep him by his side." Phoebe glanced at that person. "You think I'm stupid? I'm just warning him in advance to prevent him from getting into trouble. That Zi-Chin is indeed a troublemaker. As for scaring him, if you believe it, you'll get it." The others looked at each other. Shadow destroyers were very mysterious, and they didn't know much about them. Phoebe waved his hand. "All right, let's roast it and eat it. Although Zi-Chin isn't a good person, this is good stuff." The next day, Butterball and Kant went to the Spellbreaker Hall to dispose of the 6-strength state Law-Breaker Beast's carcass. However, Butterball hesitated. He didn't know what to exchange for. After thinking about it, he exchanged for 2 sets of martial crystal sources. These things weren't available on the 1st level. They could only be exchanged on the 2nd level. To enter the 2nd level, one had to be in the same realm or use the carcass of a beast to open the way. Of course, this was because he was a lawbreaker. If it were the spiritual spell hall, one couldn't enter the 2nd level without being in the same realm. A 6-strength state law-breaker beast carcass could only be exchanged for 2 sets. He took the Spellbreaker sources and went to find Zi-Chin. Zi-Chin was a little surprised, but he accepted it. Breaking through the realm was indeed the most important thing now. Then he looked at Butterball and hesitated. He smiled faintly and said, "Take it." He directly gave the other party a martial crystal origin. With it, Butterball might be able to take another step forward and reach the 6 forces boundary. Butterball knew that Zi-Chin had misunderstood. so he didn't take the martial crystal origin. He said directly, "When I went back yesterday, I thought about it for a long time. Your situation is indeed very special, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a chance to break through." Zichen laughed. "Why, are you comforting me?" Kant shook his head and said, "No, it's just that your situation is very rare. It's a little strange." Then he looked at Zichen. He didn't know what to say next. For example, "It's so strange that it makes one curious." The smile on Zichen's face disappeared. He was not a fool, nor was he a youngster who looked young. He had lived for a long time and had seen countless schemes. He had even seen saints and villains. He instantly understood what the other party meant. "Are you going out with me again today?" "Good. Let's hunt some more law-breaking beasts." Kant immediately nodded. The two went out of the city again. After walking for a long time, Kant suddenly said, "Why don't we try to go deeper today and not come back tonight?" Zichen looked around. There was no one around. Okay, he had some questions to ask Butterball, but he felt that there was no need to ask. The word curious gave Zichen a lot of thoughts. Perhaps he needed to break through as soon as possible. Before he broke through, staying outside might be the best result. But there was also a problem. If he stayed outside, there would be no resources to exchange. How could he break through? The two entered the mountain and killed the first law-breaking beast. It was finished in one move because it was a 5-forces boundary beast. Then they continued to go deeper. Butterball stood behind Zichen and kept a distance of 3 feet from Zichen. This distance was enough for him to retreat quickly if he encountered any danger. Boom! A powerful energy shock wave. The first law-breaking beast of 6 forces boundary fell at Zichen's feet. Butterball and Kant immediately went forward and collected the law-breaking beast's corpse. They brought it to a place not far away and prepared to dissect it. If they dissected it themselves, they would get more materials. If they sent the whole thing over, they would get less materials. "Come, let's go deeper," Zichen said without looking back. Kant could only follow immediately. On this day, Zichen killed 3 law-breaking beasts of 6 forces boundary. At night, the two retreated to the edge of the mountain range. They started a fire and barbecued meat. Fatty would occasionally look around, his expression full of vigilance. After all, he was only at the 5 forces boundary. The law-breaking beasts that appeared here were at least at this level. Zichen threw the barbecued meat to him. Then he took a portion and ate. Facing the food, Butterball was a little absent-minded. Zichen added some firewood to the bonfire. "Tell me what you know about the shadow destroyers." Kant shook his head. "I've never seen a shadow destroyer. You're the first. We only know about them in various rumors." Butterball thought for a moment. It's said that the shadow destroyer status is extremely noble. It even surpasses that of lawbreakers. They rarely appear in the periphery because their status is too noble. That's why they live in the core of Dharma-breaking city with the big shots. A shadow destroyer has the soul power of a lawbreaker. They also have the energy of a lawcaster. With the combination of the two powers, their combat power is extraordinary. They can be said to be invincible. Butterball told him what he knew. Just like the rumors, he knew nothing else. Zichen asked again. "All these years, there hasn't been a shadow destroyer?" "No." Butterball shook his head again. After that, Zichen did not ask any more questions. The night was silent. There was no danger. When the sky brightened, the two continued to go deeper and hunt law-breaking beasts. Today they were a little unlucky. They only killed 2. After that, the two left early. Before the sky darkened, Zichen began to refine the martial crystal source. The energy in the martial crystal source was absorbed by his heart like a clay ox entering the sea. During this time, there was no feedback of new energy. Zichen was now only 1 step away from the 6 realms of strength, and this step was not lacking in energy but in rules. or it could be said to be an instant of enlightenment and the recognition of rules. He originally thought that the energy in the martial crystal source could help him. Now, it seemed that it was a little difficult. When the sky brightened, Kant left. He brought the corpses of the 5 law-breaking beasts back to exchange for the martial crystal source, because Zichen said that if one strand of energy was not enough, then he could get a few more. Since he had the means to kill law-breaking beasts, he could use numbers to make up for it. This energy also entered the heart, but did not flow out during this period. In Zichen's spiritual sea, there was still a lot of soul power. However, he could only control a portion of it, which was pitifully little. It was like there was a mountain of gold in front of him, and Zichen could only lift a stone on it. But even so, Zichen already had the means to kill the 6 realms. It was hard to imagine what kind of combat power he would have once he completely controlled the soul power. The sky gradually darkened. Kant, who went back early in the morning, had not returned yet. You're tuning in to the Thunderous YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.